Imagine being born into the richest family in an entire empire, having a top-tier education, unlimited cash, and the kind of arrogance that only generational wealth can produce. That's Fernan Fellenberg, the young lord of House Fellenberg, enrolled at the Imperial Academy's Department of Magic, and obsessed, and I mean clinically obsessed, with money. This kid genuinely believes nothing on earth is more valuable than cold, hard coin. He spent his days chewing out merchants for not hitting their sales targets he personally doubled because apparently normal expectations were beneath him. Life was good, life was predictable, life made sense. And then the sky decided to disagree. One random day, mid-conversation with a servant about some underperforming merchant, Fernan gets struck by lightning, just out of nowhere. No warning, no dramatic build-up, just boom, fried. His whole expression twists from the shock, and before he can even process what happened, a soul appears in front of him. This thing is grinning, thrilled to have found a body to hijack. It reaches out, grabs his head, and starts pouring something incomprehensible straight into his mind. Fernan felt it immediately. This thing was trying to possess him, so he gathered what mana he could and fought back. And, surprisingly, for something that arrived like a thunderclap, it wasn't that hard to push away. But here's the thing. A piece of it got through, and the moment it did, memories that didn't belong to him started flooding in. Memories of a story, a prophecy, an entire future laid out like a novel someone crammed into his skull. When he opened his eyes, panicked and scorched, strange writings appeared in front of him. Prophecies about the end of the world, the arrival of 72 demons, him getting expelled from his own family, becoming a beggar, losing every last coin to his name. Now losing the world? That was bad. But going broke? That was the real nightmare. From that day on, Fernan threw himself into figuring out what happened, what that soul was, where those memories came from, how any of this was possible. He never found answers, but one thing became terrifyingly clear. There was a very real chance these prophecies were legit. Why? Because ever since those memories showed up, he'd been using the information inside them to make absurd amounts of money. Every play worked. Every prediction landed, which meant the good stuff was real. And if the good stuff was real, so was the part where he ends up starving on the streets. 6 months later, and the kid is a mess. His attendant notices it. Fernan's been acting off, zoning out mid-conversation, drooling while lost in thought, making impulsive decisions that don't match the calculating negotiator he used to be. The attendant is sure it has something to do with that lightning strike. Fernan won't admit it, but the truth is obvious. He knows what's coming and it's eating him alive. Then he spots a name in the newspaper. An Armenian, and just like that the color drains from his face and rage takes over. That bastard had actually shown up. Fernan storms off, saying he's heading south, leaving his attendant standing there wondering if the kid's finally lost it. The Imperial Academy sits on a massive remote island entirely built with magic. Everything artificial, everything grand. And Fernan is there today for one reason: to find out if the prophecy is real. Out of everything written in those visions, 3 parts haunt him the most. The part where he loses all his money, the part where he becomes a beggar, and the part where he ends up broke. Yeah, those are basically the same thing 3 different ways, and every single one keeps him up at night. But there's more. In one version of the future, 72 demons from the Solomon River invade the world, and the person destined to stop them ain't Armenian. A direct descendant of Emperor Calanus Armenian, the family that founded the entire empire 1,000 years ago. They've lost their power since then, sure, but the prophecy doesn't care about current standings. It clearly states that Ain't Armenian is the protagonist of this story, and here's where it gets personal. The prophecy also says Ain't is the one who delivers the letter that gets Fernan expelled from school. He's directly tied to Fernan's downfall. The details are vague and the text is twisted, but on the surface, it has something to do with Fernan being associated with demons. The exact cause is unclear, but the effect? Crystal clear: ruin. So Fernan heads south, looking for a dungeon supposedly left behind by the first emperor. Inside it, there's a sword holding the spirit of Royal Knight Gardener. That sword is what Ain't is supposed to use to begin his fight against the demons. If it weren't for the boy's destiny to save the world, Fernan would have already killed him. But you don't murder your best investment opportunity. Near the dungeon, he smells blood. A plant stained bright red. Just like the story described a croaker, the apex predator of the swamps. And Fernan, fresh into the academy, doesn't stand a chance against something like that. The prophecy keeps checking out. Then, right as he's about to enter the dungeon, guess who shows up? The man himself, Ain't Armenian, standing right in front of him. Fernan immediately asks what he's doing here instead of taking the academy entrance exam. Ain't wants to know how Fernan even knows who he is. Fernan plays it cool, says everyone knows the emperor's descendant, but the blonde kid has no clue who Fernan is. When Fernan introduces himself, the kid's eyes go wide. Wait, are you that infamous Fernandin Fellenberg? Fernand's expression drops. He tells him to show some respect. Then he notices the kid is covered in blood from fighting that croaker. And here's where Fernan does something unexpected. He tosses Ain't a high-grade potion, casually mentioning it's worth 10 times a regular one. The kid starts to say he can't afford it, but Fernan waves him off. He doesn't need the money. Total power move. Humiliating, really. Then he adds that since Ain't has imperial blood, consider it an investment. The blonde kid stares at him for a moment, thinking maybe this guy isn't as crazy as the rumors say. He thanks him. But Fernan's already calculating the loss. That potion was stupid expensive. So naturally, he launches into a lecture about how valuable it was and tells the kid he owes him a lifelong favor. Then he waves goodbye and watches from the shadows as Ain't enters the dungeon, chugging that premium potion like it's water. The pain is physical. Inside the dungeon, Fernan follows at a distance. He's stunned that a place this remote actually has a working dungeon. What confuses him more are the magical lamps still lit inside lamps that absorb mana from the environment to stay powered forever. Each one is worth a fortune. And of course, Ain't walked right past them because the kid is broke and clueless. Classic. Fernan watches as the boy pushes forward despite being badly wounded, holding his ribs together with one hand, chugging weak potions that do absolutely nothing. Stubborn idiot, then something shifts. Ain't's eyes glow, an instinctive reaction. On an altar sits what the kid would call a plain-looking sword. Plain. It's a massive gleaming weapon shining under the light. How is that plain? Ain't grips it, and light floods the entire cave. When his eyes open, he's gone. Not in the room, not anywhere in the dungeon. Just vanished. All that's left is the mark where the sword used to be. And Fernan, he's standing there furious. Because this means the prophecy keeps unfolding. Which means the expulsion letter is coming. He'll be stripped of his title, publicly humiliated. His father will tell him to never show his face again. Basically a polite way of saying get lost and die somewhere quiet. He scratches his head, unable to believe he's walking straight toward poverty. What kind of cursed future is this? But he's also a businessman. And right now, Ain't Armenian is a rising stock that keeps gaining value. The real problem is their personalities couldn't be more different. Fernan only cares about money. Ain't is all about honor and justice. If Fernan shows too much of his real self, he'll blow any chance at building a connection. He brings the dilemma to his butler Hyde, framing it as a business question. There's an investment opportunity with massive returns, but the people managing it have a personality that completely clashes with his own. Hyde doesn't hesitate to invest anyway. The Duke always said even personalities can be aligned when money's involved. That settles it. Invest, take the risk, profit later. Clashing personalities can be overlooked when the payoff is that high. Back at the academy, dorm assignments depend on your rank. Top 10? Living like royalty. Ranks 11 to 30? Still decent. Below 30? Sleeping next to the dumpster. That desperate voice screaming about how disgraceful the room is, that's Gardner. The spirit from the sword ain't picked up. He's already ripping into the kid, saying there's no way a descendant ended up this pathetic. If the Emperor knew, he'd snap every demon's neck in sight. Ain't pauses. Why is he bringing up demons? Gardner says he wouldn't have appeared if demons weren't involved somehow. Ain't mutters that he's too weak to do anything about it. Just started at the academy. The spirit gets even angrier. Brought back by someone this fragile, what a disgrace. Ain't pushes back, saying it's the first emperor's fault for abolishing the succession system and donating most of the royal land. That's why his family, the Armenians, lost everything. No sword techniques, no resources, no influence, but he still has potential. And maybe Gardner showing up now is part of the Emperor's plan. Then someone knocks. A voice calls out for Ain't. And from that voice alone, you already know who it is. Fernan. Standing there in a suit, smiling that merchant smile, asking if he's busy. He invites Ain't somewhere quieter because the room is chaos. Ain't tries to stall. He literally just woke up, but Fernan reminds him who gave him that potion and tells him to get moving. Meanwhile, the spirit wants to know who this guy is. When he finds out it's a Fellenberg, the reaction is immediate. Filthy rich and nothing else. He warns Ain't not to get involved. All they have is money, no strength, no worth. But Ain't figures Fernan's just here to collect on the potion. Instead, the first thing Fernan brings up is the sword. Of course he brought it along. Ain't says he just feels safer carrying it, but Fernan already knows that blade holds Gardner's spirit. Over dinner at a place that makes Ain't visibly uncomfortable, way too expensive, Fernan quietly observes. The kid seems kind and easygoing, but he's hiding something. He asks what Ain't plans to do after graduating. Ain't says he's tired of hearing people say his family is washed up. Even if they only have a name left, he wants to become a true knight and restore their honor. Fernan files that away. Strong determination, deep ambition, massive pride in his bloodline. His original plan was to throw money at the kid, sponsor him, buy him equipment, the usual approach. But with someone this prideful, that would feel like an attack. This kind of investment needed a push and pull approach. Give a little, then nothing. Give a little more, then nothing again. Build trust gradually, and only when the timing was perfect, reel him in. Patient money, the smart kind. Then the butler shows up, reminding Fernan about a meeting he completely forgot. A girl from the Burke family has been waiting for 3 hours. The butler mentions that at this point, she probably thinks Fernan deliberately stalled to make her give up. To which Fernan replies honestly, that just makes things easier. If she's already discouraged, crushing her will be even simpler. The butler tells him to ease up. Fernan laughs it off, but says either way, he needs things to go well with the Burkes. Then suddenly, pain. He clutches his head off balance. The butler asks what's wrong. Fernan says it's nothing, just a headache. But it's not nothing. A new vision hits him, a girl with chestnut brown hair and eyes like aquamarine. Behind all her beauty, what defined her was a noble presence and unmatched swordsmanship. Her sword danced in the moonlight, and the prophecy said that if her shackles were ever broken, she could spread her wings again. Those shackles belonged to the Fellenberg family. Now the pieces start connecting. This girl is why Ain't ends up hating him. She's gonna have some connection with Ain't, and Fernan is a problem in her life. He curses under his breath while the butler assumes it's directed at him. Cut to the girl herself, Luina Burke, sitting there absolutely fuming. 3 hours. No phone, no distractions, just simmering rage. Her family comes from a remote northern city. They used to guard that region, but after a massive monster attack, their fortress was destroyed. They sold off patents, scraped together everything they could, and it still wasn't enough. The one who extended a hand, Fernand's father. But not out of kindness. The Fellenbergs had always been talented in magic but lacked swordsmanship. The Burkes, with their flawless sword technique, were starving, the perfect setup. Alone they'd never be able to repay. The Burke family survived annihilation only to slowly suffocate under crushing interest. And Luina, she's the one who in the future becomes Ain't Armenian's lover. Her potential, intelligence, and beauty are all exceptional. The only thing she lacks is money. Given her talent and her connection to Ain't, all Fernan has to do is make sure she doesn't hate him. So he walks in, apologizes for the wait, says he got distracted and never meant to keep her standing around. She tells him to save it. Her time's already wasted. She wants to know why he asked to meet her. He starts talking about class partnerships between the night and magic departments, but she cuts him off. She already knows he wants her as his partner. But why would she agree? As the second-ranked student, she'd do much better teaming with someone in the top 10, not someone ranked 10th. Then he drops the bomb. Stay partnered with him for 3 years, and he'll clear her family's entire debt. One condition, she has to accept him as her sponsor. She's shaken. Why would he go this far? He says it's because she's talented, nothing more. But she knows how nobles work. They never sponsor anyone without expecting something in return. Fernan reads her resistance and switches tactics. He tells her to stop acting so proud. He wasn't lying when he said she was talented. Then he starts quoting words straight from the prophecy about how her sword was noble and beautiful, how it truly embodied beauty and life. He knew this would get her. By acknowledging her talent directly, she'd have no choice but to listen. She looks confused, doesn't even blush. Our boy really has zero romantic aura. He stands up, launches into a whole speech about how he hasn't been able to forget watching her fight, how her swordplay keeps him up at night. She tells him to stop with the nonsense, but he keeps going. Her sword is like a perfect dance that words can't describe. Finally, she gives in. She didn't really have a choice. She needs the money and he's the richest person around. Later, the deal is set. 3-year sponsorship kept private. The maid watching all of this is not happy. The real price of the arrangement is that Luina has to be the partner of that money demon for 3 whole years. But when Luina tells the maid what Fernan said about her sword being a supreme, noble, beautiful living dance, she finally blushes, says, it felt like he couldn't find the words to describe her beauty. The maid's reaction? Jealousy. She admits the bastard has good taste and intense eyes, but swears if she runs into that greedy gnome again, she's crushing him. The maid's got a thing for our boy. Luina picks up on it immediately, but she herself says she didn't feel seduced, more suspicious. Still, being financially backed for 3 years when her family is broke, she couldn't say no. Then the attendant arrives. The Lord wants to see Miss Luina at the training grounds. Time for Fernan to find out if she's really the hidden gem the prophecy promised. She steps onto the field, saying she still doesn't understand what he's thinking. He says he's here to prove that joining him wasn't a bad decision. She gets it instantly. He's going to fight her. She warns him it's pointless. At rank 10, he's going to get destroyed. The gap between 2nd and 10th is massive, but he tells her to come at him already. And finally, after all this talk of money and manipulation, our boy actually uses magic. Stones shoot down at her while he chants in some unknown language. She just spins her sword once and slices everything apart, smiling the whole time. She charges at him, tearing through his attacks like paper. He keeps launching spells. She keeps deflecting them like it's nothing. Then he teleports behind her and draws a magic circle. She pauses. The training arena has reinforced flooring designed to resist all magic, and he's still wrecking it. Could Fernan Fellenberg have really been hiding his true power this whole time? Rich, good-looking, and secretly powerful. Come on, share some of that around. She notices he's casting multiple spells back-to-back without resting, which should be impossible without a ridiculous mana reserve. That's not the power level of someone ranked 10th. At this rate, she might actually lose. She activates a tornado, shredding every floating rock to pieces. The whole training ground is falling apart, sky breaking through the ceiling, stones everywhere. She charges again, another flurry of slashes. And our boy is still just standing there. Let's see if she connects. But then something clatters to the ground. Wait, that was his staff. Looking sheepish, he says he gives up. He's completely out of mana. She stares at him, suspicious. Is he trying to humiliate her? No, he's genuinely drained. He went all out and still couldn't touch her. Since she defended herself completely, the victory was clearly hers. But something about the whole thing didn't sit right. Then Fernan pulls out a box of chocolates, her prize for beating him. He knows she likes them. His family produces some of the finest chocolate around. She's dazed, practically drooling, saying he's clearly been doing research on her. He fires back that he wouldn't go that far for someone like her. Is he in love or not? Make up your mind. She tells him to stop trying to bribe her with chocolate just because she won. She's not a child. He insists. She yanks it from his hand, saying fine. But then she stops him. She wants to know how he has that much mana. Firing off that many chain spells back to back should be impossible. If he's that skilled, why is he only ranked 10th? He smiles. A merchant doesn't need to be in the spotlight. This maniac deliberately keeps his rank low to make more money. Pride comes second to profit, always. Nearby, Hyde asks what happened. Fernan burned through all his mana refills and the mana amplifier. Our boy says the duel with Luina was tougher than expected. Came fully prepared and still got wrecked. Hyde doesn't get it, why go this far for her? Fernan says it's simple. She's an investment for the future. And of course, Hyde's back to thinking this is all a side effect of that lightning strike to the head. But Fernan's thinking something else entirely. Her swordsmanship really was elegant. Now it made sense why the prophecy focused on the Burke family's techniques. Luina genuinely had talent. So why, in the future, did she never stand out? Maybe her gear held her back, or maybe something happened along the way. Well, yeah, his family basically ruined her by burying her in endless debt. The attendant wants to know what Fernan's going to tell the Duke, since he didn't obtain the legendary sword style from the Burke family. Fernan admits he hadn't thought that far. Hyde says he won't be exiled. He'll probably just get killed, run over, and left in a ditch. He already sent a letter to the Duke ahead of time, so the man could prepare to execute him the moment he arrives. And, instead of panicking, Fernan's been trying to distract himself and ignore it all. Days later, the letter arrives. He opens it, nervous as hell. The response came much faster than usual. Hyde confirms it, but says the real concern is what's inside. Fernan even asks if his dad sent a separate execution order. Hyde says no, though he's pretty sure today is the last day he'll be serving Fernan. But when Fernan finally reads it, all his father wrote was that he probably got possessed by a demon. Right then, Fernan decides to visit the old man. He can't tell anyone about the prophecy or the knowledge in his head. There's no physical book, just information he can't prove. If he blurts out the truth, his father will think he's delusional and probably get furious, thinking Fernan's trying to destroy the family. So the goal is simple: minimize the damage from the Burke situation. When he arrives, the Duke says he looks calmer than expected. Asks if his son's been doing drugs, losing his mind, or getting possessed by demons, because he can't explain what's going on otherwise. Fernan says he simply made a better investment in the Burke family. The Duke wants to know what investment could be better than their secret sword technique. Fernan says he can't reveal that. The Duke isn't asking anymore. He sees Fernan as a disgrace, a fool squandering the family fortune, but Fernan holds his ground. Even so, his beliefs haven't changed. If the Duke trusts him with the Burke situation, the outcome will bring in far more than that technique ever could. The Duke's temper flares. He didn't raise his son to be this reckless. That's when Fernan realizes he'll have to reveal something. In exchange for full responsibility over the Burke matter, he offers one piece of intelligence only he knows about: an undiscovered mana crystal mine in the Heroes Mountains. His father is skeptical. How could Fernan's small group find something their entire intelligence network missed? Fernan shrugs and says kids love digging in the dirt, they got lucky. But the amount of crystals down there is more than enough to cover any potential loss. The Duke's face turns serious. He loves money too. A mountain of wealth was enough to make any problem disappear. The truth is, the mine is only mentioned briefly in the prophecy. No exact location, no confirmation of its size. But right now, the goal is buying time. The Duke says if it's true, it could fix everything. For now, Fernan should go back to school. Fernan walks out sweating, relieved he managed to calm the old man down. But just as he's leaving, his father calls out. He turns around, panicking. The Duke just invites him to dinner since he's already there. Later, the Duke talks privately with the butler, disappointed that his intelligence group, the Black Turtle, missed something this big. He wants to investigate Fernan's intel group and figure out how they're getting this kind of information. Turns out Fernan's group is called the Golden Pillar, and the boy himself specializes in locating mana stones. Even though he has top-tier talent in fire magic, he focused entirely on earth magic just to understand more about minerals. The Duke can't deny it, the kid's magical talent fits perfectly with his group's focus. Still, they need more details. The butler suggests being careful. Fernan might be growing faster than they expected. The Duke smiles, saying he hadn't expected anything so extraordinary from his son. But right now, they also need to figure out how that Luina girl managed to seduce poor little Fernan. The butler raises an eyebrow. Does the Duke actually believe she seduced him? Of course he does. He raised the kid to be a brilliant merchant. The only explanation for throwing money at something that doesn't profit is that the boy got defeated in the game of love. Still, the Duke's not young anymore. He doesn't care about the relationship. What matters is understanding why Fernan, who loves money more than his own father, suddenly chose something like this. The scene shifts to Luina, happily devouring a giant ice cream cone that our boy bought her. They're chatting about a guy named Carlos who apparently also wanted to sponsor her, but once he found out Fernan already had, he moved on to someone else. Fernan asks why she told him about it. Rumors spread, and she needs to understand that. But she says everyone's going to find out eventually anyway. She already knows people will assume she only partnered with him for the money. And the reason she doesn't want to hide it? Because that's exactly what it is. He nods. Yeah, money is great. He really likes it. With money, there's nothing you can't get. She says now she understands why people call him the demon of wealth. That's exactly why she hates him. Then he hands her something. An elixir made from mandre roots and a voucher redeemable at one of his company's stores for a weapon. She immediately wants to know why. There's no way she can afford something like this. He brings up the sponsorship contract. She's aware of the terms, but even so, this is way too much. These items are extremely rare. And from his reaction, she can already tell they're only rare to someone like her. Someone broke and drowning in debt. To him, it's pocket change. She refuses to accept it. Meanwhile, Fernan's doing his own math. Given that he's destined to become a beggar, anything he can do now to prevent that is 100% gain. He tells her that refusing his support violates the contract she signed. She snaps, practically breathing fire, and says fine, she'll take it. He stands up. See you in class. As he walks away, she can't stop thinking. Even if this is a sponsorship, it's going to come at a cost. But what really gets to her is why he's going this far. Maybe he's trying to seduce her to steal her family's sword technique, or maybe it's something else entirely. Whatever it is, she tells herself it doesn't matter. There's no way she's fallen for him. And the moment someone says that, you know they're doomed. Poor ain't Armenian. Somebody tell him his future fiancée, who he hasn't even met yet, has already been stolen. Back in class, Fernan spots Ain't standing quietly off to the side. Today's lesson is real combat training, the deadly kind. And according to the prophecy, this is where Ain't starts drawing attention. This is the beginning, the moment the world starts watching the hero rise. A blonde guy approaches Fernan. His name is Ledger Schwaben, second son of the current ruling family. 100 years ago, his family was elected as the new imperial house, and they've held power ever since. They share ancestral roots with Ain's family, but their bloodline split off long ago. The concern? Someone from the original line showing up and stealing the spotlight. Naturally, Ain's attracting attention. Ledger mentions there's another guy interested in the blonde kid too, Varen Kalbunderer. This one joined the academy as the second highest scoring student, and he's probably looking to steal whatever spotlight Ain is building. That name is the one Fernan had been waiting to hear. In every hero's story, there has to be a villain. And in Ain't Armenian's story, this was the guy, the one who swore to cut him down. The instructor announces the next match. Anton Dern versus Ain't Armenian. And, just like that, every single person involved in the future Fernan had seen was gathered in one place. In the memories, he recalled everyone cheering for Ain't, the crowd screaming his name. But right now, nobody even knew who he was. Nobody had any idea what he'd become. For Fernan, this was the moment to see if his investment was going to pay off. The signal drops. Dern charges at full speed. Ain't looks startled by the first clash. Dern swings straight for the neck. Was he seriously trying to decapitate him? But Ain't flips into the air, landing to the side. The jump drains him though. Up in the stands, the second prince remarks that Ain't got unlucky going up against someone who ranked 10th in the entrance exams. Ain't had ranked 36th, and that was before he even had the Emperor's sword. The prince shrugs, says there's nothing worth watching, and starts to leave. But Fernan says he thinks something interesting is about to happen. Right on cue, Ain't launches a wide slash straight at his opponent's face. A grazing cut across the cheek, his uniform tears open. In that moment, Dern realizes if the blade had gone just a little farther, he'd have been sliced clean in half. Suddenly, even the two smug observers who were looking down on the blonde kid are paying attention. Fernan can tell that Ain't only struggled at first because Dern came in too aggressively. It was just a lack of battle experience, but the talent was clearly there. And once Ain't locked in, it only took seconds to beat the guy who ranked in the top 10. Dern drops to his knees, humiliated, defeated by the kid who ranked nowhere near him. He flares up, shouting that there's no way he's losing here. Other students comment that Ain't's doing better than expected but couldn't possibly beat someone ranked 10th. The second prince adds that at least the kid's living up to the Armenian name. For someone supposedly untalented, he's putting in decent effort. But Fernan sees it completely differently. Lack of talent? That wasn't it at all. This kid came from barren lands. Never had support, never had resources to train properly, and even so, here he was holding his own against someone who'd trained his entire life. No wonder the prophecy chose him. And now the world was about to find out. Dern's sword goes flying. He collapses, gasping, completely defeated. The instructor announces the winner, Ain't Armenian. The kid stands there smiling from ear to ear as the crowd erupts. The redhead Kalbunderer glares in frustration, and the money demon, he's celebrating too. Stocks are up big time. Good investment confirmed. He hums a little tune, totally pleased. Nearby, people start murmuring, wondering if Fernan and Luina are actually a real pair. Yes, the next big investment, standing right next to him fuming. He casually asks if she took the elixir and picked up the gear. She keeps her cool, mutters that it wasn't bad, just okay. But the truth is, she was thrilled when she got that equipment. And when she took the elixir, her power shot through the roof. Then someone approaches the instructors announcing that all pairs have been finalized. The professor says class is beginning. Everyone gets maps, and the first practical class is a field exercise. The destination is marked. All they have to do is arrive at that exact location within 4 hours. Not a minute early, not a minute late, precisely at 2 p.m. Students ask if this affects their grade. They're told straight up this is as important as the midterms. With no further questions, they're sent off. Deep in the forest, the dynamic duo is working their way through. They check the map, but then notice another pair staring at them. A red-haired girl calls out to Luina. Fernan immediately recognizes them ranked below 70. In other words, not worth the time. Normally, that's what he'd say. Someone who runs entirely on cold logic. But Luina's already fired up and he shrugs, tells her to do what she wants. She draws her sword, says it's time to grab some bonus points, and before anyone can blink, she's airborne doing flips. Those poor students got obliterated. Well, one did throw up a solid barrier. Props for that. Never mind, it's over. 2 students lying on the ground in tears, another team eliminated. Back in the observation room, the professors note that teams are dropping faster than expected. The gothic professor Roselia thinks it's fine. At least students aren't being wiped out by monsters. Internal conflict is way more interesting. She says the strongest team is obviously Ledger and Alain. Carlos is worth watching too. But the most bizarre team, Luina Burke and Fernan Fellenberg, the other professor agrees totally unexpected, and honestly Luina seems to be at a disadvantage. Was it because of money? Raise. What didn't make sense was that Fernan never cared enough about grades to invest just for academic improvement. Roselia says she's sure there's another reason, and she drops something interesting. Ever since Fernan joined the academy, he's been ranked 10th. No matter what, even top students fluctuate, but this kid never moves. His written exams are practically flawless. The only time he loses points is during practicals, which keeps him locked right at 10th place. The other professor finally gets it. The kid's doing it on purpose. Roselia confirms it. And the one who recently destroyed the training grounds? That was Fernan. The professor can't believe it. That whole place was reduced to ashes with a hole in the ceiling. Why would he hide his abilities? She says based on his motivations, it's probably about money. A merchant doesn't need to be in the spotlight. Meanwhile, Luina's on a rampage. Bodies are piling up. She asks if Fernan found anything useful on the map. He says they need to head north. The path's full of people, but for her that's perfect. She's ready for more. Then a giant fireball comes screaming at them like a comet. Someone approaches, saying they finally met. Carlos Denv. Even his name sounds like he's about to get wrecked. Luina says it was a cheap shot. He says this is real combat practice. Turns out this blue-haired kid wanted to pair with Luina, and now he's furious that Fernan snatched her. Luina tells them both to quit it. She doesn't belong to anyone. But Carlos is red in the face, screaming for a fight. Fernan tells Luina to charge in. He knows there's no stopping her. She says she won't need backup, they haven't coordinated anything. How would they be in sync? But Fernan's already lifting chunks of earth with magic, telling her to trust him. And the crazy part is this guy doesn't even specialize in earth magic. Wait until he uses fire. The gothic professor spots the clash from the observation room. It's happening on the eastern mountain. This was her chance to finally see what Fernan could really do. And there he is hurling boulders while Luina charges. It's a real fight between powerhouses. Luina starts feeling something strange. Her body is incredibly light. There's only one explanation. Fernan's been casting support magic on her mid-fight, but when did he even do it? He's already backing her up seamlessly, and when she glances over, the lunatic gives her a wink. She realizes he's insane, then nearly gets slashed because she was distracted. Now is not the time to think about that idiot. She needs to finish off Aliyah. She blasts a powerful explosion, Aliyah blocks it, and they lock into close sword combat. Then Aliyah's partner fires off a lightning bolt. You'd think Fernan would step in. Nope, Luina gets hit, paralyzed, unable to move. Aliyah steps forward saying it's over. Luina mutters that it's nothing, but it's too late. Aliyah activates her aura and prepares to end it. Then a golden flash streaks across the field. Not lightning, not a meteor. Fernan used a substitution spell, a teleportation technique he developed with his family. He swapped her position with a stone of equal weight and pulled her right to his side. She's stunned. What the hell was that? He says it's magic. A new family technique that lets him switch anything of the exact same weight. She asks how he knows her exact weight. He says it's recorded in the Academy's student registry. She laughs, saying that stone must have been really heavy. They almost get attacked again, but the scene cuts. She immediately says she's going to have to erase those student records later. But for now, they've got a fight to finish. She tells Fernan to hold off Carlos while she handles Aliyah. A magic circle appears near Fernan. Finally, he's using what he actually knows. Carlos specialized in lightning magic. His signature technique was an orb that releases multiple lightning bolts, what they called multicasting. That spell was one of the reasons he was ranked so high. Fernan slams his staff into the ground and starts chanting while Carlos does the same. Then, something goes wrong. Someone shouts Fernan's name. He's been struck by lightning right in the head. Smoke everywhere. That's already the second time he's been fried. But of course, he's totally fine. Carlos is in disbelief. How was the entire spell blocked? On the ground, there's an item. Clearly something expensive, the kind of thing only a walking bank could afford. Fernan explains it stores energy. He made a few adjustments and it worked perfectly. Once he fine-tunes it, he plans to sell it in stores. Carlos calls it cheating. Fernan replies that there's no such thing as cheating on the battlefield. Then he calls out to Luina. Carlos turns worried, but Fernan already gave the command. Luina's bright blue eyes flare as she lands a clean hit. Done. The top 2 students watch from nearby. Ledger remarks that only 4 people are left now. Alan, the number 1 ranked student, says what interests him is how Fernan blocked that lightning. Ledger admits he doesn't know much about Fernan. The kid had been hiding for a long time. But now that he's teamed with Luina, keeping his powers under wraps is going to be tough. He was unlucky to partner with someone so obsessed with grades. More students show up from behind, but they're basically background characters about to get wrecked. At first, it seems like they're heading to fight Ledger, but he turns and offers them a deal. He'll get everyone safely to the destination on one condition: they team up and take down Luina and Fernan. The next chapter opens with a monster getting sliced. Fernan says they're getting close, but creatures keep popping up. Luina cheers, thinking they'll be the first to finish. He's busy collecting troll blood from the corpses, and she asks if it's really necessary. He explains it's incredibly useful for crafting potions. She says she knows, but with his money, that stuff's pocket change. Of course, to him, money is money. She complains and he reminds her thanks to that mindset, he managed to buy her. She storms off saying she's had enough. He teases that she sounds awfully desperate to stay at the top. She admits it. There's a very specific reason she has to be number 1. Suddenly, he senses a lot of people approaching. They're surrounded in seconds. Magic starts flying, stones hurling through the air. He raises a barrier. Luina slices down the first few attackers. Someone charges straight at her. Elaine Donnards, the same guy already beaten by Ain't. Now it's her turn. They trade blows in a clean exchange that sends both flying back. She's fired up. They charge again, auras blazing. Then a strange movement cuts through everything and another mage appears, flames in hand. Wait, that's Ledger, the number 2 student. But before anything escalates, a wave of dark energy sweeps the entire field, heading right at him. This fight's gone completely chaotic. The blonde prince is smiling. Of course, our boy Fernan just went serious. He's hurling fire and stones everywhere. A massive explosion goes off in front of the whole crowd. The other guy complains that he was only testing Fernan's reaction, no need to vaporize everything. That kind of effort isn't like him. Fernan answers that this time he wants first place. The prince smiles and proposes a deal. Since fighting now means neither team finishes, let Fernan and Luina take first while they settle for second. Both sides come out ahead. Then Fernan shows what he's really got. He throws down a massive magic circle beneath everyone. The ground splits. He's tearing up the entire forest while simultaneously throwing a barrier around himself and Luina, a trap they'd set up ahead of time. By the time anyone reacts, everyone else is sealed inside a stone cocoon. He calls to Luina time to go, and just like that, they walk away. The headmaster congratulates everyone and announces the rankings. First place, Luina Burke and Fernan Fellenberg. Those other 2, completely wiped, stumble into second. Fernan compliments Luina on the result. She admits she didn't expect them to come out on top. She thought it was unfair since they didn't fight the strongest. But he says it doesn't matter. They still won. After the announcement, Luina brings up something that makes Fernan freeze. She mentions seeing Ain't Armenian the night before during a solo training session. She describes his swordsmanship in the exact same poetic way Fernan had described hers. Suddenly, Fernan puts a hand over his face. At first, it seems like jealousy. He's been trying to win Luina over, and now she's fascinated by another guy's sword skills. But no, it's the prophecy again. A new piece just revealed itself. Apparently, Ain't reached out his hands and asked Luina to become his knight. She refused, but the text is getting scrambled, flipped upside down, barely readable. Something apocalyptic is coming, and Ain't is the target. But a female knight stands in front of him. She says she was born to wield a sword and destroy the enemies of lords. Today, she'll be his knight, just like he asked. She runs forward to face a demon and ends up in rough shape after the battle. The vision shifts further. She wakes up in a hospital with Ain't beside her, grateful she survived. But the blonde kid is furious, swearing to destroy the bastards who hurt her and ruined the Burke family's future. And it's clear who that rich bastard is. Fernan snaps back to reality when Luina and the professors call out to him. He's been standing there completely zoned out. He says he's just exhausted. But now he finally understands why Ain't will see him as an enemy. What he can't figure out is why the prophecy has changed and why everything now revolves around Luina. What's even stranger is that whatever's coming seems imminent. The demon Andromeus is about to show up. Next chapter, Ain't praises Fernan for coming in first, but our boy just climbs into the carriage, exhausted. He's been thinking about Andromeus, the 72nd demon. The creature takes human form with a little snake on its arm. No matter how many books Fernan searches, that's all he can find. Makes sense the thing showed up during a war 1,000 years ago. Detailed records don't exist. Those creatures were wiped out by the first emperor and haven't been seen since. Still, Fernan stays relatively calm. Ain't is supposed to deal with the demon anyway. That's not his problem. The real issue is that Luina is going to get hurt in the process. He tries bringing it up with her, awkwardly. He asks if she believes in demons. She thinks he's lost his mind. He pushes for a straight answer and she says yes, she does. The entire nation was built to fight demons. Then he asks what she thinks about the idea that demons still exist. She asks if he hit his head. He's sitting there racking his brain for something that would convince her when an idea hits him. In a month, during one of the night training sessions, Ain't is going to defeat Kalbunderer, the second strongest student. From that point on, nobody compares to Ain't. But the loser doesn't just lose the fight, his honor and family standing get destroyed. That frustration pushes Calbunter over the edge. He gets possessed by a demon, and that's when the creatures start appearing. If Fernan can use that moment to convince Luina, it might be the perfect chance. Meanwhile, Aint's spirit companion warns him not to trust the Fellenbergs or the Schwabens getting close. The only family that ever truly stood by the Armenians was the Burkes. Fernan somehow already knows about the ghost's little chat. He's got almost all the information he needs for his plan, but a few pieces are still missing. He knows they'll surface eventually, but this time it's taking forever. This scene cuts to Aint reviewing how Fernan took first place with the Burke girl. The ghost insists it was all thanks to Luina. That Fellenberg guy only cares about money. But then the ghost gets an idea, tell Aint to ask Fernan for money. He's convinced the kid wants to build a relationship with the Armenians, and the Fellenbergs always use money as bait. Aint wonders what he could even offer since his family's already ruined. The ghost tells him to stop putting himself down. The reason doesn't matter. Fellenberg would absolutely act like that they've been the same for 1,000 years, but Aint insists there's no way. Fernan seems like a genuinely kind person. The ghost sees right through it, cold and calculating. Still, Aint says it would be dishonorable to beg for money. The ghost scolds him, reminding him that even the first emperor needed help despite being insanely powerful. Cut to the next scene. Aint's crushed. He didn't get to meet Fernan. He shows up, but Fernan has his attendant turn him away, saying he's too busy. Aint walks off empty-handed, completely humiliated. But Fernan is watching from the window. He finds it strange he hasn't even thrown out enough bait for the kid to show up like this. Hyde walks in and asks why he's pushing Aint away when just days ago he was talking about getting closer. Fernan explains, it's because the visit was too sudden. Everyone who seeks out the Fellenbergs has an obvious reason. He knows why Aint came, and that's exactly why it's suspicious. It's not normal for someone that proud to ask for money. So he sent him away. For now, it's best not to offer anything unless he truly trusts the boy. Hyde thinks he's overthinking it, wasting brain power on the descendant of a fallen house. Fernan says the kid's got talent and it'll be worth it. Then he tells Hyde to go grab some elixirs from the family warehouse. That's what he plans to give Aint. Hyde warns it's risky if they hand over an ultra-rare elixir and it doesn't work, they lose out. Fernan says if the most expensive one doesn't work, they'll make an even more expensive one. In this life, if you haven't succeeded yet, it just means you haven't spent enough money. In Aint's room, the ghost is stunned by the audacity. They didn't even send Fernan himself, just a servant with a letter. At least there's an apology. The ghost reads it and gets annoyed at how Fernan always refers to himself as somebody, someone more experienced, which the ghost finds insufferable. But then Aint checks the gift. It's an elixir infused with the spirit of the sacred bird, perfectly suited for the Armenian sword style. Right there, Aint says Fernan is really something. Even if he didn't give money, he offered something incredibly valuable. He gets emotional, saying he always knew Fernan was kind. Now he's more determined than ever to live up to his expectations. Next chapter, Fernan asks how it went. Hyde says Aint easily defeated Vin Calbunderer. Even though Vin had a slightly more advanced technique, Aint's aura was overwhelming. Fernan asks if that's thanks to the elixir, and Hyde says it probably helped. But judging by Fernan's smile, it seems like Aint would have won with or without it. Fernan just says that's something they'll never know. What matters is that, just like the prophecy said, Vin was defeated, and now he's going to be possessed by a demon. He tells Hyde to keep a close watch. He needs to know when and how Calbunderer makes contact with the demon. Everything. Where he goes, who he talks to, what he does. 2 weeks pass. Surveillance updates come in about everything from when Calbunderer uses the bathroom to every class he takes, and still nothing. Fernan's sure something's wrong. According to the Prophecies timeline, demons should have started appearing by now. The prophecy stated that, after being defeated by Aint, Calbunderer would grow enraged and confront him again during the mid-year exams. But the outcome was already decided. Aint, taught by the spirit of Gardner, would completely overpower him, and a strange demonic energy would start seeping into Calbunderer's body. Suddenly Fernan wakes up. It's morning. Apparently he slept through the night and dreamt the whole prophecy. This time it wasn't a direct vision, more like a dream. But now he knows exactly when the possession happens. During the mid-year exams, after Aint beats him down again. And here's the kicker. That exam? It's today. The prophecy caught him completely off guard. Hyde walks in, says he's finally waking up early, time for breakfast. But he sees Fernan loading a Zelda-looking shield and a bunch of items into his portal and asks what's going on. Fernan says he's going to watch the first year's fight and might need backup. Hyde refuses. He's been summoned to the Duke's territory. Fernan accepts it, says he'll take someone else. Hyde finds it strange though. He knows Fernan doesn't have any friends at this academy. Fernan insists he does. Well, friends he bought with money. Luina, now confused, wants to know what this is about. He tells her he needs an escort to pick up an elixir. She's not thrilled it's exam time, but she could use help since she's being sponsored. The moment Fernan offers to reduce her debt, she's in. When she asks where they're going, he says the northern mountains. She points out that first years are taking their mid-year exams up there right now. Going in is borderline insanity. If they interfere, they could both get expelled. Then it clicks. If he's being allowed in, he must have bribed someone. He just smiles, saying professors are surprisingly flexible. She says she's heading back to the dorm. He tells her to hurry. She just forgot her sword. He tells her she'll come skipping back. Obviously, they need to be on site when everything goes down. Once there, Fernan reminds her he paid off a professor to let them in, but they can't get caught. She scolds him for knowing this was shady all along, and doing it anyway only made it worse. He tells her she's such a good kid and says he's going to check where they need to go. He vaguely remembers the location from the Prophecies map. It's where Ain't's fight happens. And finally, he'll get to witness Vin turning into a demon with the right person beside him. He calls her to follow. She's still hung up on how he got a full map of the entire test area. Clearly, the bastard paid a fortune for it. He tells her to stop complaining. Then something feels off. She asks if that was the sound of a monster. Fernan feels it too. She says they need to help the first years. He tells her to wait, but she takes off running. She shouts that someone's unconscious. They had a defensive spell up, so they survived, but something's wrong. Creatures in this region aren't usually this aggressive. Fernan can't believe it. It's already started. That eerie roar echoes through the trees again. Luina asks what the hell is going on. The entire forest is exploding. Then she sees something approaching. An orc, mace in hand. She doesn't hesitate. Slices clean through its arm. The chunk hits the ground, but the creature keeps advancing. She just hacked its arm off. Why won't it stop? Then boulders come flying from behind our boys, chucking rocks at its back. The beast keeps charging anyway. More stones slam into it. Luina dashes past, launches off a tree, dodges another swing in midair, and lands beside Fernan. She's confused. He explains it's a creature gone berserk. In that state, it feels no pain. This kind of monster is on a completely different level, obsessed with killing anything alive. She wants to know why. Fernan already knows. It's because of the prophecy. While the professors deal with these monsters, Calbunderer is going to attack Ain't. Obviously, Ain't should struggle against someone that strong, but just like any story, the protagonist awakens a new power and wins. He tells Luina to calm down, raises his staff, and says he'll take care of the beast first. Elsewhere, Calbunderer crashes to the ground, beaten, calling out for Ain't not to turn his back. But Ain't tells him to accept it. He's been defeated again. The words leave the redhead stunned. He remembers someone telling him they expected too much from him. He's failed the prince's expectations. He's about to be humiliated by his father again. At this rate, he'll lose his place in the family. He charges again with everything he's got. But Ain't turns with a smile, and in a clean set of strikes, Calbunderer collapses like trash. Ain't laughs, saying it's funny how hard this guy tries while being so weak, attacking from behind with no honor at all. He walks away while the sword spirit keeps laying into the fallen redhead, calling him a worm who disgraces the honor of knights. Back with our dynamic duo, they've just finished a monster. Luina tells Fernan to give up on this elixir hunt. The forest is way too dangerous. He says, come on, she just took down one of those creatures. That proves they can keep going. She asks if he's lost his mind. He throws the question back. That elixir is worth too much. Even if these creatures are relentless, they do die eventually. She questions him directly. Did he know something like this was going to happen? Is that why he dragged her along? He says no, obviously. It's not like he has visions of the future. She's not convinced. Something about all this feels off. But he takes off running and she shouts that he's a lunatic. Sometime later, they find someone collapsed on the ground. Red hair. Fernan already knows who it is. Luina goes to check. It's Calbunderer, beaten badly but alive. She says they can't leave someone lying there like that. While she's talking, the guy starts rising behind her. She feels something strange in the air and steps back, an aura she's never felt before. This isn't the same Calbunderer she knew. Fernan tells her it's demonic energy. The kid's been possessed. What confuses Fernan is that Calbunderer was supposed to awaken his power after getting beaten by Ain't, but his target seems to have changed. The demon is taking full control of his body. Luina wants to subdue him somehow, but Fernan just taps her on the shoulder, tells her to turn around for 10 minutes, and vanishes. And at that exact moment, Calbunderer charges at her with his sword. She yells at him to calm down, full-on clash, her little sword against his massive dark blade, and she immediately realizes he's strong, way too strong. She activates her aura and knocks him flat, but he recovers instantly, coming at her again. She shouts for him to snap out of it, but he grabs his sword and keeps swinging. She retreats, glowing with her bright aura, while he charges in like a rabid dog. Impact, sword on sword, the forest shakes. She lands on her feet, but realizes something terrible. Her energy is being drained by that demonic power. At this rate, she'll be worn out before he is. That's when Fernan reappears. Calbunderer turns, but Luina just steps on his head and bolts toward Fernan. She demands to know where he went. He says dealing with demons isn't easy. He was setting up a trap. She's furious, calling it shameful that he left her. He says he didn't run. He was preparing to finish this. One more second and boom, a stone formation erupts from the ground, launching Calbunderer into the air. From above, a barrage of flaming arrows rains down, slamming him back to earth. Was that a fighting game combo? Luina yells at him not to overdo it. He almost killed the guy. Fernan says with demonic energy like that, he wasn't dying easily, and she should look closer. All that did was make him angrier. He pulls out a giant crystal. More money-fueled power. Flames gather around the corrupted redhead. The demonic energy surges, engulfs him, and finally, he collapses. Charred and defeated, Fernan sighs in relief. Operation successful. Luina points out that crystal was ridiculously expensive. Wasn't it a massive waste? He agrees, but says items like that are meant to be used. She thinks it was overkill. He's convinced otherwise. You can't take down a demon-possessed opponent easily. Besides, he knows Calber was supposed to be one of the key players in the world's destruction. Then it hits him. In the story, Ain't was supposed to fight this guy and awaken his true power through the struggle. And right now, at this point in the timeline, Luina is still stronger than Ain't, which means Fernan didn't need that expensive crystal at all. She probably could have handled it herself. All he can think about is how much money he just burned on this idiocy. Nah, she smacks him, tells him to snap out of it and get focused, but Kalbunderer starts rising again. He lunges forward, all twisted and staggering like a deranged animal. And Fernan, this beautiful, wealthy, calculating mastermind, just decks him in the face with a bare fist, screaming about how much money he had to spend to take this bastard down. Kalbunderer drops unconscious, beaten in the messiest, most undignified way possible. Kalbunderer wakes up asking if that was really him. He can't believe it. Something like that just couldn't be real. Fernan says flatly that the recording from the observation sphere clearly shows him possessed by a demon. There's no faking something like that. Kalbunderer keeps insisting he doesn't remember fighting Ain't at all, none of it. Fernan replies that's because by the time he fought Ain't, he was already starting to be taken over. Kalbunderer pushes back hard. He never spoke to a demon, never met one. How could he have been possessed? Fernan says he's not in the mood to explain and tells him to just watch the recording. He was hit directly in the head. Dozens of magic arrows pierced his body. A pillar of flames erupted from his feet. The fact that he's standing here right now proves he was protected by demonic energy. And on top of that, Fernan adds with visible pain, he had to burn through a lot of expensive items just to handle him. Kalbunderer fires back if he's just here to complain about the price. Say so, he'll pay for them. But Fernan goes full drama mode. The emotional trauma from that fight was immense. He claims that during the battle he constantly saw his life flash before his eyes. Kalbunderer cuts in, tells him to just spit it out already, and Fernan pulls out a contract. Yeah, that kind of contract. The kind where you sign your freedom away. He tells Kalbunderer that all of this can be forgotten if he signs. Kalbunderer looks at the terms and nearly chokes. What the hell is this? Is this slavery? The conditions are excessive, to put it gently. Fernan tells him to appreciate the kindness of his. He's trying to settle this without making a mess. But if Kalbunderer refuses, well, Fernan will unfortunately have to forward the video to the Inquisitors. That name alone is enough to make anyone sweat. The Inquisitors serve directly under the Emperor, and their entire purpose has always been the eradication of demons. Back when demons were the world's greatest threat, they held absolute power. Nowadays, with demons nearly extinct, they're more like a ceremonial organization, but they still hold significant authority, and Fernan knows exactly what kind of people they are. They might have lost power, but they're hoarding countless rare items, just waiting for an excuse to return to relevance. The moment a demon shows up, they'll rush in to kill. Kalbunderer says he understands, but he truly had nothing to do with the demons. Fernan says he knows, but wouldn't it be a shame if the kid got expelled over that recording? Imagine the rumors about the house of Marcus Kalbunderer once people start whispering that his son made a pact with a demon. Obviously that seals it. The contract gets signed. Fernan declares that from now on, Kalbunderer is under his care. Just like that, another piece added to the collection. Sometime later, Luina asks if it's really okay to settle things this way. She thinks they should inform the professors. This is getting too risky. But Fernan says it's not the right time. Based on Kalbunderer's reaction, he never intended to be possessed. He didn't seek out a demon, which means someone within the academy has the power to make this happen. And if this goes public, whoever's behind it will simply go into hiding, making it impossible to catch the real culprit. Luina immediately picks up on what he's planning. He's going to investigate this himself. What she doesn't understand is why students would be targeted. Fernan says maybe it's because this academy is filled with the people who will shape the future. Destroying this place would be like destroying the world's future itself. She gets it. And she tells him straight if he ever needs help exterminating demons, just call on her. Fernan lights up. Finally, he can ask her for help without having to offer debt forgiveness every single time. She has no idea how much that one promise is going to cost her. Soon enough, she'll realize it was the dumbest thing she could have said. With all the chaos from the demon incident, the mid-year exams were officially cancelled. But the students still needed to be evaluated, so all practical tests got swapped out for written exams. At this academy, practicals are usually the most valued. But of course, there are always those nerds buried in books. Now, the swordmasters had to actually study. Ain't was deep in his books when Alma, his spirit companion, spoke up. She's been trying to make sense of what happened. When that boy attacked him, she's certain he was giving off demonic energy. But whoever or whatever that demon was never fully appeared. Ain't says maybe she's exaggerating. Maybe it wasn't a demon at all. Alma insists that's impossible. She knows that energy. And she tells him to start preparing himself because that demon is definitely coming back. Worse, she's sure he'll be one of the targets. Ain't asks why him. Alma says it like it's the most obvious thing in the world. He's carrying the spirit of the person who wiped out every demon in the past. Their first move in trying to take over the world would be eliminating the Armenian bloodline. From now on, he better not let his guard down. Not even for a second. Meanwhile, somewhere else entirely, Fernan is clutching his head in agony. More messages from the future. The next test involves survival skills. Students will be dropped into a southern forest for an entire week. Fernan knows exactly which forest they're talking about, and his eyes go wide because it contains a certain spiritual herb. But here's the twist. The so-called herb is actually a trap. It strips away all protections. The vision shows Ain't entering a cave. A voice warns that if he doesn't truly intend to find it, he never will. He keeps going and comes face to face with a dragon. When the spiritual beast collapses, it reveals a mithril mine underneath. The vision tells Ain't not to leave anything behind. But let's be real, Fernan is absolutely going to end up with all of it. Mithril, a mana-blessed metal and the only material that allows souls to live inside it. That's why the Emperor's soul is stored in that sword Ain't carries. Fernan processes all of this while his head's splitting open. The moment he understands what mithril actually is, he wants it bad. A metal that can store souls? The business applications alone are enough to make him drool. Luina gets summoned again. She groans. Last time it was a potion, now it's a herb. He tries to play it cool, says he's joking. But this time it's legit. He swears it's something valuable. She shouldn't worry about classes. He's already lined up a ton of excuses for the professor so she can come with him. He even offers to lower her family's debt again. She still refuses. Missing an entire week of class for a spiritual herb? That's where she draws the line. He sighs and says fine. If she won't come, he'll invite someone else. Right on cue, the door opens. A voice says it's been a while since he's seen Brother Fernan and wishes him a mana blessing. Jace Vine steps in, practically glowing with holy energy, and greets Luina with the same blessing. He's here to speak with Fernan. Luina immediately asks if they're close. Fernan smirks, saying she sounds surprised. Jace adds that their friendship makes sense given the nature of their relationship. Luina says it just doesn't seem right. This guy is the saint of the Church of the Dragon. How is it that a holy man from a religious order and the greediest person in the entire school are friends? Jace explains that the Church of the Dragon originally worshipped the dragons who gave magic to humankind, but over time, their worship shifted to revering mana itself. Because of that, the church kept growing, and nowadays it's basically a mage-run organization. Anyone who wants to become an archmage must be recognized by their church. Luina tells him to cut the lecture. She already knows all of that. What she doesn't understand is the friendship. And then everything clicks. Jace explains that an organization dependent on mages needs a lot of money, and Fernan Fellenberg just happens to be their biggest supporter. Countless church artifacts were created thanks to his investments. That's why the church and Fernan are deeply connected. While the two of them chat, Luina realizes once again this bastard solved everything with money. She starts wondering how Jace is even considered a saint. He gently asks her to ease up with the harsh words. It's not like they can refuse Fellenberg's help, right? When she only gets more worked up, he says he was joking. But she's already walking out, saying she now fully understands their relationship. Jace waves goodbye, blesses her with mana, and closes the door. All the weirdos in the room turn to Fernan. They want to know why they were summoned. He gets right to the point. He needs help collecting some herbs. Jace says, spiritual herbs are interesting, sure, but Fernan better not get ideas about keeping everything for himself. What he really wants to know is why Fernan's doing all this on the day of the training. With his abilities, he could easily head out and collect everything solo. Fernan says if it were that simple, he would have. Unfortunately, he doesn't know the exact location. The prophecy gives hints a massive lake in an enormous forest, but there are 7 lakes in the southern forest. He's been infusing mana into the lake beds trying to locate the reaction tied to the herbs, but no luck. This kind of hidden cave can't be detected from outside. You literally have to stumble into it. Jace notes that the next survival test takes place right in that area, and navigating a place like that without being detected won't be easy. Fernan says not to worry. He registered himself this year as an assistant for the exam. Jace is puzzled. How is a second year going to act as support staff for first years? Sure, he's older, but he's not exactly qualified. How did he even convince the academy to let him in? Don't tell him it was the goth instructor, the one who shuts down every scheme. Wait, he didn't even have to ask, did he? Of course he bribed her. Jace says he already knows how the merchant operates. And hey, if Fernan's getting this involved, just pay him the right amount and he'll join in too. Contract in hand, done. And boom, it's test day. Alma is telling Ain't they need to go over the plan one more time. They're here to find the spiritual herb hidden in one of the caves. She knows everything. She tells him to make it look like everything's a coincidence, just wander around, and she'll guide him from there. But Ain't's already noticed something. Fernan's hanging around nearby. Alma warns him to be careful. That bastard is probably looking to rob him of every coin he's got. But Ain't standing there like a curious puppy, just excited to see the guy. Why is everyone so interested in Fernan? Because he's loaded. That's it. That's the whole reason. And look at him, already calling out to Fernan all excited. Just then, the professor calls for everyone to get in position. Ain't's a little disappointed he didn't get to talk to him. Then, the camera pans down to the ground. There's a scarecrow dressed in Fernan's clothes. Our boy bites his finger, collapses onto the scarecrow, and boom, a Fernan too rises right up from it. That was Jace's doing. He casually tells Fernan not to worry. He's used this power plenty of times. Heck, he even fooled the Pope with it once. Fernan finds that very hard to believe. The Pope is one of the most powerful mages alive. Jace admits it only worked for a few hours, nothing long term. But while the Pope was fooled, it worked like a charm. Fernan shrugs and says, that's good enough. If the technique was strong enough to trick the legendary mage, it'll do fine for his plan. No wonder that redhead bastard is one of the strongest in the Church of the Dragon. But then a demon's voice cuts in, asking what the hell is up with this church's magic, since magic was originally born from demons. And it was when this creature dared to utter that kind of blasphemy that the war between the church and the monsters began. What Fernand's wondering now is whether Jace is going to become one of Aint's allies in the future. Jace tells him to come back in 5 hours at most. That's when the spell wears off. Fernan thanks him and heads out. And now it's someone else's turn to make an entrance. Guess who steps in front of Aint again? Cal Bund? For real? This guy again? Aint is stunned. The redhead, who only ever gets beaten up, has returned. He even asks if Cal Bunderer is here just to get smacked around again. Doesn't he realize he doesn't stand a chance? Cal Bunderer knows that's true, but clearly someone made him come here. When Aint asks why, Fernand's voice echoes in the background. The kid clearly doesn't understand the situation he's in. Crooked and bruised, Cal Bunderer says he refuses to accept defeat. He's here for one more fight. Aint is baffled. Wasn't getting stopped twice enough. The guy got wrecked with one hit, but Cal Bunderer yells at him to knock it off. He doesn't care if he loses hundreds of times, tens of thousands of times. He'll keep challenging Aint until he earns back his honor. Alma's actually impressed. At least the guy's got spirit. He's got the heart to keep going. Nudges. She nudges Aint, asking if he hadn't noticed how much knightly pride the redhead actually has. Maybe he should accept the challenge. Aint sighs and says fine. But the test today doesn't involve dueling. Cal Bunderer says that doesn't matter. He's not here for the school exam. He's here to fight for his honor. Even the sword spirit starts shouting for Aint to go through with it. He can't run from this. The guy's looking to restore his dignity. He deserves the chance. Alma and the sword keep pressuring him while Aint is clearly losing his patience. Fernan, the guy Aint thought had already headed to the cave? He's just lurking nearby, watching everything unfold. He mutters to himself that it's buying him exactly the time he needs. While Cal Bunderer plays distraction, Fernan is off to take care of much more important business. At the lake, the barrier is already up, so strong that even if you dug a hole or blew open a crater, no one would hear or see anything inside. It's finally time. Time to use that spell he's been itching to try. He needs to find that mithril before Aint shows up. That's why he prepared a special summoning. He casts it. Rise, my servant. The basis of this magic is supposed to be about gathering every useful technique, the foundation of a merchant making absurd amounts of money. How that relates to summoning a massive golem, who knows? But there it is, standing tall. And from now on, its name is James. Alright, James, let's get to work. They've got a lot of mithril to dig up. Meanwhile, back with Aint, Cal Bunderer is still blocking his way, saying he won't let him pass until he's been defeated. Aint is exhausted. The redhead's already been pummeled into the dirt and is now clinging to Aint's leg like a princess in a drama. Aint begs him to please, for the love of everything, stop acting like a child. Cal Bunderer groans that he doesn't want to be doing this either. But unfortunately, he knows all too well what happens if he doesn't obey Fernan. The second Aint hears that name, he's confused. He tells Cal Bunderer to repeat what he just said. Day, and Cal Bunderer, with the most painfully fake smile plastered across his battered face, says he's really enjoying this. In fact, it's exactly what he wants to be doing. He just loves interacting with people who crush his pride and destroy his future. That's why it would be great if Aint would go ahead and beat him down one more time. Aint just snaps. He kicks the kid, asking what kind of weird person is this. Cal Bunderer goes flying, lands flat on his butt, then stands up like it's nothing and says, yeah, I am weird. But Aint's already gone. Cal Bunderer checks the time. Fernan only asked for 1 hour. Looks like he managed to stall Aint for 1 hour and 10 minutes. 10 extra minutes of pure suffering. What an exhausting guy. Even after all that, Alma is still nagging. Aint saying he shouldn't have dismissed the will of a knight so easily. He replies that the rules clearly said no fighting during training. Besides, she was the one who told him to come to this cave in the first place. Curious to see what's inside, Alma tells him to relax. Whatever's in there can't be stolen. Very soon, he'll understand. There's something extremely rare inside. Something that's going to change his life. All he has to do is look down there. And when he does, Aint's expression changes completely. There it is. The spiritual herb he's been searching for. But deeper inside the cave, someone else is already celebrating. 5. Our boy Fernan, along with his trusty golem James, scooping up every last piece of mithril like it's payday. Aint says, finding the herb is great, but how the hell are they supposed to mine all this with a dragon hanging around? Alma says she wasn't expecting a sea dragon to show up either, but they're already here, so they have to deal with it. Ain't asks if she expects him to charge at the thing. Alma tells him that sure, if he wants to end up as lunch, go right ahead. A creature like that is way above his current level. But right at that moment, bonk, a tiny stone hits the dragon. Its eyes slowly turn and lock on them. Then it rises. Alma instantly realizes things just got a lot worse. Somewhere, an Armian stood in a pitch-black cave with his sword drawn, staring down a massive blue dragon. The only advice Gardner gave him was simple: run. Gardner shouted at him to retreat, to turn back, to forget the whole thing. Ain ignored him and charged anyway. The moment his glowing blade struck the dragon's scales, it became painfully clear that he was outmatched. The dragon's tail whipped across the cavern and smashed into him with enough force to make the whole cave echo. Ain crashed onto the wet stone floor and cried out, but instead of staying down, he forced himself back to his feet. He raised his sword again as if the first blow had not nearly crushed him. The dragon threw back its head and roared, shaking the cavern around them. Ain attacked again with full commitment. The dragon answered with another brutal tail strike that slammed him into the ground for a second time. He was soaked, battered, and barely holding together, but he was still conscious, still holding the sword, still fighting. Elsewhere in the same cave system, Fernan heard the commotion. Holding a glowing blue crystal, he immediately realized the dragon had awakened. The thought annoyed him more than anything else. He had even laced the beast's food with sleeping medicine, hiding the pills in meat, but apparently mythical creatures were not so easy to keep down. Fernan quickly ran through the situation in his head. Ain could be seriously injured fighting that monster. Worse, if Varen had not yet been possessed, then the timing of the prophecy might already have shifted. Still, Fernan reminded himself that he had already given Ain the Saint Bird's heart. That should count for something. Back in the cave, Gardner barked at Ain and asked whether he was done yet. Ain was dragging himself up the rocky wall, breathing like a man who had run uphill for miles. Gardner scolded him for not running when he had the chance. Ain admitted it had been close, far too close, but argued that he had wanted to run. The dragon simply attacked before he could. Gardner snapped back that if the cave floor had not crumbled from the force of the exchange, Ain would already be inside the dragon's stomach. Ain, with surprising nerve for someone who had just been ragdolled across a cave, muttered that he had held on fairly well. Gardner paused, then reluctantly admitted that Ain really had grown stronger after absorbing the Saint Bird's heart. That brief approval vanished when Ain pointed out that the miracle herb was still safe, only now it was impossibly far above them. Gardner muttered that climbing back up there would take forever. Then Gardner sensed something strange deeper in the cave and ordered Ain to follow. Ain said he could not sense anything, but Gardner cut him off and told him to move. Ain followed him farther into the darkness until they reached a spot that looked completely ordinary. Ain glanced around and said there was nothing there, insisting they should just retrieve the herb and leave. Then Gardner noticed a faint light buried deeper in the stone. He told Ain to dig. Ain obeyed, clawing at the rock until something hidden beneath it revealed itself. The sight stopped him cold. The scene shifted to a forest. A man asked Jace whether he had obtained what he wanted. Jace confirmed that he had. There had only been a few monsters along the way, nothing serious. The other man told him he had done well and mentioned that the Merchant Guild would place an order that day, with the amount matching their contract. After that, he took his leave. Jace sat beneath a massive tree and turned a glowing blue crystal over in his hand. Mithril. He knew exactly how rare it was. Mana, conductivity, absorption rate, refinement potential. Mithril excelled in every category. But Mithril alone was inefficient. To bring out its full potential, it needed to be paired with another material. There was only one ideal match: adamant, the hardest metal in the world and just as rare as mithril. Jace began wondering where he was supposed to find it. Perhaps the prophecy would point him toward it eventually. Before he could think further, someone started shouting for help in the forest. The cries came closer and closer. Jace did not move. When the person finally arrived, Jace calmly asked whether he truly intended to keep pretending Jace had not already noticed him. If he were actually in danger, Jace said, he would obviously help. But then he asked the real question: why would an elf be in danger from a mere hellhound? Moments later, the two of them were seated on a thick tree branch. Jace gave a curt greeting and asked whether the visitor had approached him on purpose. The elf tried to claim it was a coincidence, only to falter halfway through the sentence. Jace told him to continue if he really wanted to insist that it was accidental. The elf immediately gave up. He admitted that the approach had been intentional and complained that Jace was colder than expected. Jace identified him as Arya Friedian and asked whether this had something to do with his family's social standing. Arya reacted as though the answer should have been obvious. Jace dryly noted that he had heard Arya liked approaching young heirs from families tied to the elector houses. Arya asked whether that meant they should be friends. Jace said no. Arya asked why. Jace pointed out that he was older, and that simply belonging to houses connected to the elector system did not automatically make people friends. He also noted that House Friedan had only recently become connected to that network. Arya cheerfully explained that this was exactly why he was making so many connections. He wanted to get close to every relevant family and asked Jace to be a little kinder. Jace suggested Arya try networking with people his own age. Arya shamelessly replied that he did not like digging just one well. He preferred digging many. Jace was momentarily speechless. The boy truly had no shame. Then the situation at the lake exploded into chaos. A massive blue dragon erupted from the water in a wall of spray and fury. Students screamed that a dragon had appeared. Others shouted that it made no sense for one to show up there at all. Without hesitation, Jace dropped from the tree branch and headed toward the disturbance. Arya protested that he could not simply leave him behind. At the lakeside, the scene had already turned into complete pandemonium. The dragon tore through the area, while assistants and professors shouted for first-year students to fall back. Someone realized what was happening. The dragon was after Ain. More specifically, it was after the herb Ain had taken from the cave. The plan formed immediately. Leave the dragon to the assistants and professors while keeping Ain out of its line of sight. The dragon ignored that plan entirely. It charged straight at Ain. Jace stepped in front of him at once. He drew out a glowing red crystal, erected a massive defensive magic circle, and committed himself fully to holding the line. The dragon slammed into the barrier with claws and fangs, forcing Jace to pour more and more mana through the crystal just to keep the shield intact. The barrier strained and cracked. Jace cursed under his breath. Even that was not enough. Then reinforcements arrived. An assistant called out to Fernan saying they would handle the rest. Mages and fighters worked together to stabilize the defense as the dragon unleashed a destructive burst of energy toward the lakeshore. The combined group barely managed to endure the impact. Then, without warning, the dragon turned and fled. Several people shouted to chase it, but Jace remained where he was, watching carefully. Something was wrong. In the prophecy, events had not unfolded like this. Had the future changed because of Fernan's intervention? In the end, Jace decided it did not matter as long as Ain survived. The one meant to save humanity could not die before proving his worth. Once the danger passed, Ain walked up to Jace and thanked him for saving his life. Jace immediately became awkward and tried to downplay the whole thing, claiming it was simply an assistant's duty to protect students. He told Ain that he was safe now and should go. But before the conversation ended, another voice interrupted and said there was business to discuss. Jace admitted he wanted to talk as well. The two moved to a quieter part of the clearing. Jace said this was not the kind of matter he wanted to discuss in the open, but Ain pointed out that nobody was nearby. That was enough. Ain asked whether the merchant guild dealt in metals. Jace answered that of course it did, and assumed Ain wanted to buy something. Then he added without thinking that Ain hardly seemed wealthy enough to be shopping for metals, and asked whether he intended to sell instead. The moment the words left his mouth, Jace regretted them. Ain did not react the way Jace expected. Instead of getting angry, he calmly told him not to worry about it. Jace, caught off guard, said he had not meant it as an insult. Ain brushed it aside. Then Ain revealed that he really did have something to sell. He took out a glowing gem. Jace looked at it once and nearly lost control of himself. Adamant. The very material he had just been wondering how to obtain was now sitting in Ain's hand. Jace forced himself to stay calm and asked whether Ain truly intended to sell it. He also asked where Ain had found something so impossibly rare. Ain refused to explain the source, only saying that it had not been obtained through anything immoral. Then he added that there was quite a lot of it. Jace pieced it together immediately. Ain must have found it in the underwater cave. Somehow that place contained both mithril and adamant. For one dangerously self-indulgent moment, Jace wondered whether fate itself had begun arranging the world around him. Then the negotiation began. Gardner immediately warned Ain not to let a Pfeilenberg cheat him in a deal. He told him to hold firm if the guild tried to lowball the price. Ain stated his conditions. Jace accepted them without hesitation. No bargaining, no counteroffer, no delay. Gardner was stunned and demanded to know why Jace had agreed so quickly. Why sell directly to him instead of putting the adamant up for auction and earning far more money? Ain's reasoning was straightforward. He wanted the adamant gone as quickly as possible. The moment rumors spread that someone was carrying a supply of adamant, powerful people would come for it. The Armians were not strong enough to protect themselves from that kind of attention. A quick sale was safer than a richer one. Jace had to admit that it was smart. Then he made a joke that nobody found funny. He casually remarked that he could simply kill Ain and take the adamant instead. Ain froze. The atmosphere changed instantly. Then Ain reminded Jace of everything that had already happened between them. Jace had given him the Saint Bird's heart. He had just risked his life to shield him from a dragon. Why would he suddenly betray him now? That response hit Jace harder than expected. The dragon attack had changed something between them. Jace finally dropped the act and admitted it honestly. He was fond of Ain, not in any complicated sense. He simply liked him. Ain accepted that and said Jace was his savior as well. Jace, after a pause, accepted that too. Then Ain tried to warn him. If Jace ever felt the desire to bankrupt him financially, Jay seized on that point with startling seriousness. He told Aang that if he ever did feel such a desire, then he should remember this day. He should remember that Aang had risked his life and saved him as well. He should never forget it. Aang agreed immediately, even though the warning struck him as strangely intense. Jay said he would prepare a contract and contact him afterward. The scene shifted again. Hyde returned to Fernan's residence and greeted the young master, saying he had been away for a while and hoped nothing unusual had happened in his absence. Fernan answered from inside. Hyde entered the room and stopped dead. Rare metals were piled everywhere. Mithril, adamant, an absurd quantity of both. Hyde stared in disbelief and asked where all of it had come from. Fernan answered casually that he had acquired some himself and purchased the rest. A lot had happened while Hyde was away. Hyde said that even great wealth was not usually enough to gather this much of either material in one place. If they sold it, they could set records. Fernan shut the idea down immediately. He was not selling any of it. Hyde then asked what he planned to do with such a ridiculous stockpile. Fernan finally said it out loud. He was going to build a giant ego golem. Not a simple puppet, not a normal magical construct, a true autonomous golem with its own power and independent movement. Fernan was not hoarding rare metals for profit this time. He was building something that should not exist. In a dark, library-like room, two figures are having the kind of conversation that should terrify everyone on the continent. A shadowy figure with glowing eyes raises a question: what if someone already knows about their existence? The man beside him shuts that down immediately. If anyone truly knew, the world would already be in chaos. He calls it a coincidence, but even he admits they need to be more careful going forward. The shadowy figure agrees. If humans discovered them now, while they're still building power, everything falls apart. Their plans, their infiltration, all of it gone. Then the conversation gets specific. Their first target? Ain't Armian. The kid's been growing way too strong since joining the academy. The man suspects the founding emperor might somehow be responsible for Ain't's sudden rise. Because of that, their next move has to work. If Armian gets any stronger, the situation becomes unmanageable. The man ends with a cold warning: don't disappoint me again. These are demons, and they've already failed at least once. Meanwhile, in the world of the living, things look a lot more normal on the surface. A bookstore clerk hands over a book someone's been searching for. Casual, ordinary, but underneath that normalcy, something ugly is already spreading. A conversation about demonic energy begins. Someone asks whether the energy was truly felt. The answer comes with specifics 3 days ago. After dinner, around 7 in the evening. The moment happened while they were with Bella Hoen, a second-year night student ranked 19th in her class. Bella had requested a training duel, claimed she'd improved and wanted to test herself. Nothing unusual about that, except this time, she asked to use real swords instead of wooden ones. Confidence wasn't empty. Bella's swordsmanship had become noticeably heavier, more forceful. She was faster, too fast enough to dodge attacks that should have landed clean. Her opponent noticed the change immediately and told her as much. Bella was thrilled. She said she felt like she had greater control over her body than ever before. She wanted to keep fighting. Someone pointed out she'd already lost. Bella protested she wasn't done telling her story yet. Classic. But here's where things get uncomfortable. Bella's fighting style revolves around heavy, powerful weapons. Massive destructive power, but the weight creates gaps in close range. During one critical moment in the duel, something unexpected happened. A sudden, devastating strike landed, the kind that shouldn't have been possible at her level. A massive impact. Her opponent hit the ground. The observers were stunned. Later, an elf woman admitted she couldn't control the technique well. Bella confirmed that's exactly what happened during the duel. Then the real question dropped: was the energy sensed during that fight actually demonic? Bella answered without hesitation. She said she'd never forget the disgusting, chilling sensation she felt from Varian. She was absolutely certain that was demonic energy. Someone asked how Bella was doing after the incident. The answer? Perfectly fine. Nothing abnormal about her condition. Unlike Varian, her body showed no signs of corruption, and she hadn't lost her reason. Because of that, the whole thing could have been a misunderstanding, but someone wasn't willing to take that chance. He wanted to check on Bella personally. If the energy was truly demonic, it could become dangerous over time. And Bella wasn't just some random classmate, she was his close childhood friend. He couldn't sit back and watch if she was at risk of falling to darkness. He asked for help. The response admitted uncertainty but promised to try. So, the investigation into Bella's daily life began, and honestly, the results were almost boring. Her routine was textbook perfect: dormitory, lecture halls, training hall, library, cafeteria, repeated every single day. The conclusion was unanimous. Bella Hoen lived like a model student. She hadn't interacted with any suspicious individuals. Unlike Varian, she hadn't experienced trauma. Her personality was bright, she had tons of friends. There should have been no space for demonic energy in her heart. But one terrifying possibility remained. If Bella truly did use demonic power, she shared one crucial thing with Varian: neither of them had ever met a demon. Neither of them signed a contract. Could demonic energy seep into someone without their knowledge, without any contact with a demon at all? Fernan privately considered another explanation. Maybe Luina simply made a mistake when sensing the energy. Then, a spark of realization hit him like lightning. A vision from the prophecy flooded his mind, and what he saw was the end of everything he was trying to prevent. The sky turning blood red, a sickening stench filling the air, demonic energy consuming an entire city, monsters roaming everywhere. And among those monsters, humans who had lost their reason. Students, academy students, people he knew. The prophecy showed him the full picture. Demonic energy had already been seeping into people without their knowledge. It stayed dormant inside the bodies of academy students, invisible, undetectable. Everything changed when a single demon descended. Its name was Andromalius, and with its arrival the academy became indistinguishable from hell. The vision continued. In a corridor of the academy, unconscious students lay scattered on the ground. Fernan, the future version of himself, examined them and declared the truth. These students had been infected with demonic energy. Bella asked whether that meant they'd signed contracts with demons. Future Fernan rejected the idea. If contracts existed, he would have known. Following Gardner's guidance, he channeled mana into the students and discovered the demon's method. They'd been clever. Instead of forcing contracts, they'd infected students during their ordinary daily lives. So subtle that nobody noticed. The process took months. The human body naturally resisted demonic energy, so most of it went to waste. But the demons didn't need efficiency, they needed patience. In the vision, Bella struggled to process what she was hearing. If students were infected, something had to serve as a trigger, a vessel to make them all erupt at once. Something amplifying the mana. Before the thought could finish, Gardner shouted an alert. In a large hall, Fernan spotted it, a magic circle. He commanded it destroyed. But then Bella suddenly cried out. Someone realized she'd been infected too. She began attacking those around her. Fernan understood immediately destroying the circle should restore her. But the circle wasn't what he'd assumed. It wasn't an ordinary mana amplification array, it was a summoning circle. The demons were bringing one of their own into the world. A shadowy demon figure materialized as the summoning proceeded. That was the future. That was what would happen if Fernan did nothing. He snapped back to the present, heart pounding. He now understood exactly what was at stake. The infection was already happening. It was happening right now, to people walking past him in the halls every day. And the clock was ticking toward the day Andromalius would descend. Fernan's thoughts crystallized with terrifying clarity. Bella had to remain alive. She had to serve as proof for her friend Luina, proof for himself since he needed Luina to trust him, and proof for the entire continent. Before anything else, he had to demonstrate that demonic energy truly existed inside Bella's body. He rushed forward and threw open a door, shouting Luina's name. Inside the large hall, Bella was approaching Luina casually, mentioning that her lecture had ended a little late, normal, relaxed, completely unaware of the nightmare sleeping inside her. When Luina arrived with Bella, another girl nearby expressed surprise at seeing Fernan present. Luina tried to explain why she'd asked Bella to come. Before she could finish, Fernan cut her off with a direct warning. Inside Bella's body, he said, "There are demons. Those demons must be killed." Bella refused outright. Fernan told her she had to follow his instructions, whether she wanted to or not. Bella asked if he'd lost his mind. Fernan stayed serious. If nothing was done about the energy inside her, she'd eventually lose her reason. When that happened, the judges wouldn't leave her alone. Bella demanded to know if he was threatening her. Fernan said he was just telling the truth. Bella protested again, insisting she was perfectly fine. Fernan called her name sharply, cutting through the argument. Luina stepped in and asked Bella to trust Fernan this once. Bella demanded to know what all this talk about demons meant. Luina pleaded with her again. Fernan agreed to proceed because Luina asked, but privately he'd already decided. If Bella had kept refusing, he would have knocked her unconscious and dragged her there himself. That's the kind of person Fernan Pellenberg was. Polite when it worked, brutal when it didn't. Bella eventually relented. Fernan set a condition: if he proved Bella didn't have demonic energy, she'd owe both him and Luina an apology. Bella questioned why Luina needed an apology. Fernan said Bella had dragged innocent Luina into the situation. Bella remarked that from her perspective, Luina was the one who'd pulled her into it, but she still accepted the terms. Fernan then ordered Bella to show him every place she regularly visited. He needed to find where she might have encountered demonic energy. Bella protested that a background check had already been conducted. Fernan ignored her and searched anyway. The training hall, dormitory, lecture halls, library, cafeteria, cafe, every single location came up clean, not a trace. During the search, Bella mentioned a newly arrived book. Another girl commented that Bella enjoyed romance novels. Fernan acknowledged it as perfectly ordinary. Privately, he admitted it would have been stranger if demonic traces were easy to find. Then a new idea formed. If the source wasn't a location, maybe it was an object. A merchant greeted Fernan politely at a bookshop, introducing himself and explaining he often received goods from Fernan's guild. Fernan asked how the man knew him. The merchant replied that merchants naturally knew such things. He offered to recommend a book. Fernan declined. He already owned every book worth reading at home. The merchant expressed mild disappointment. Luina called out that it was time to leave. Fernan agreed. As he turned away, his expression darkened. He quietly told Bella to come back. Something about that interaction didn't sit right. Later, Fernan led the group into a private room inside a guild-connected cafe. The girl asked whether the cafe belonged to Fernan's guild. Fernan said he'd never actually visited before the room was reserved for important guests. This place, he explained, was the best location if they wanted to avoid being seen. Elsewhere, in a chapel-like setting, a red-haired man surrounded by a radiant aura greeted a small group. He declared that those who had faith would receive the blessing of mana. A young boy excitedly announced that he believed. The red-haired man then turned to a young man named Jace and asked whether he'd brought the requested item. Jace confirmed. The red-haired man reminded him no returns, no exchanges. Back in the private room, Bella demanded to know what Fernan was doing and why Jace was there. Fernan answered simply. Jace would prove the truth that Bella carried demonic energy within her. Inside the room, the red-haired man from the Order presented an artifact and explained how it worked. He stated they would prove whether demonic energy existed within the pink-haired girl using tools specifically designed to detect demons. He explained that these preparations had existed for centuries. A prophecy from the founding pope had foretold the return of demons, and because of that warning, detection artifacts were created with incredible precision. Bella introduced herself properly. Bella Ho, second-year night studies, and was asked to hold a marble artifact with both hands. Mana from the marble would enter her body and inspect what lay inside. She questioned whether the method would truly work. The answer was that Jace himself had said, if this artifact couldn't detect demonic energy, nothing else would. Despite all this, the red-haired man admitted honestly that he personally didn't believe Bella was infected. He'd only come because Fernan promised to purchase the artifact from him. Bella said she was a member of the faith and that demons existing in the present age should be impossible. Still, she cooperated. She wanted to finish the test, prove everyone wrong, and collect her apology. The marble activated, and then the color changed. Bella asked what that meant. The answer destroyed her confidence. The marble changes color specifically when it detects demonic energy. Bella's face went white. Another man immediately claimed something must be wrong with the artifact. He tried to calm the situation. Before anyone could settle the tension, a fervent voice erupted into an invocation. The speaker called upon the great dragon god and declared that an evil human who had accepted a demon into their heart was being offered up. Jace responded instantly. He announced the offering was being delivered to the dragon god and launched a fireball. Fernan screamed for Jace to wait, but the attack was already flying. The marble slipped from Bella's hands. Smoke and heat filled the room. Bella collapsed to the ground, trembling. Fernan stood nearby holding a sword, overcome with fury, shouting that he'd kill whoever was responsible. Bella protested angrily that someone had appeared without warning and nearly burned her alive. The chaos settled. The larger truth emerged. Academy students were being infected with demonic energy that someone was deliberately spreading. Another person confirmed Bella hadn't met a demon or signed a contract. The man who performed the detection questioned that certainty. How could they be sure no demon contact occurred? The response was that Bella had been monitored for several days and nothing suspicious was observed. The realization followed that the situation would become extremely dangerous if the conclusion was correct. Someone suggested requesting assistance from the Order. Another voice rejected the idea immediately. If the information went public, the demons would disappear into hiding. The red-haired man called Jace closer and began outlining a secret plan. The demons must never learn their existence had been discovered. He proposed an ambush. If Jace helped him, they should be able to eliminate the demons completely. Jace enthusiastically agreed and promised to follow whatever instructions were given. The conversation turned back to Bella. The red-haired man asked whether the demonic energy inside her could be removed. A man with long brown hair answered confidently it could be done. The red-haired man extended his hand toward Bella. She recoiled, asking whether he intended to kill her. He reassured her purification, not death. Bella wasn't convinced. She insisted the man looked insane and demanded Fernan intervene. Fernan distanced himself but made his position clear. Bella was not an evil person. He warned the red-haired man that if the threatening expression continued, their business with the Order would be cut in half. The threat of lost revenue landed harder than any diplomatic plea. Fernan apologized for the outburst. The red-haired man accepted the apology calmly. Once the tension subsided, the red-haired man extended his hand again. He explained that the Order eliminated only demons and the truly evil, not innocent victims. Bella asked whether a spell capable of purifying demonic energy actually existed. He confirmed that purification magic was standard training for Order members. Bella nervously asked if she'd be safe. He promised the spell wouldn't harm her. Bella finally agreed. The red-haired man cast the purification spell, warning that it would sting as it burned away the evil energy inside her. The magic surged through Bella's body. She collapsed as the burning sensation overwhelmed her. Someone called out her name in alarm. After the spell ended, the room settled. Fernan remarked that the building was surprisingly sturdy. He'd expected the structure to collapse after the spell Jace had unleashed earlier. Someone explained the building was designed to endure heavy shocks and loud noise. Fernan asked whether Bella was all right. The answer she was still breathing but unlikely to wake up anytime soon. Fernan decided what to do next. He'd carry Bella back to the dormitory. Then he paused and adjusted the plan. It would look less suspicious if people thought she was simply drunk. Someone raised a concern walking around appearing drunk in broad daylight might damage Bella's reputation. Fernan placed a cloak over her face to further disguise her condition. Someone thanked him for the help. As he prepared to leave, Fernan noticed there was still a little alcohol left in the room. He briefly considered drinking it, then he moved on. The immediate problem with Bella had been resolved. Now came the harder work. Fernan had to use Jason the Order to locate every infected student in the academy. As many as possible needed to be purified before the prophecy came true. Preventing the demon's arrival entirely would be ideal, but he didn't yet know how to achieve that. For now, he would prepare for the events he knew were coming, starting with the yacht club meeting. During his investigation of suspicious individuals who'd infiltrated the merchant guild, he'd discovered something disturbing. One of those infiltrators had become an employee on the yacht. At the time, he didn't realize that person was collaborating with demons. The scenario he'd planned should naturally prove that he had no connection to demons. Planning events was easier when you already knew what would happen. If everything went according to plan, Ain't would eventually trust him completely. It shouldn't take long before Ain't began considering him a friend. Meanwhile, Fernan had also been working behind the scenes on the yacht club itself. There was a detail about Bella that most people didn't know. Fernan had previously blocked her from joining the yacht club, a calculated move to pressure her through her debts. He admitted privately that she was actually one of the most qualified candidates to belong there. A woman nearby explained why the stance had changed. She'd recently discovered traces of a demon and received information that something would happen at the yacht club meeting. Because of that, she'd already prepared a trap. But additional allies would be useful. When the news reached Ain't, his reaction was immediate. He declared he would never forgive the people who infected Bella. Gardner eagerly supported the idea of revenge. The plan to confront the demons at the yacht club began to solidify. Later, two people sat on a bench discussing Bella's condition. She still hadn't regained consciousness. An entire day had passed since the purification. Someone reflected on how much damage Jace's spell must have caused. The conversation drifted to ordinary matters. It was lunchtime, so they decided to go eat. Fernan smiled as the larger plan crystallized. Everything was falling into place. He declared it was finally time to catch his fish. Someone nearby repeated the word in confusion. Fish. And for just a moment, the air around Fernan Pellenberg felt genuinely cold. Elsewhere in the academy, a blond young man sat in a study with a blue flame spirit hovering beside him. This was Ain't Armian, descendant of the founding emperor, first-year student, and someone who had no idea just how many people were already pulling strings around him. Gardner, the spirit bound to his sword, asked how he was feeling. Ain't said he was fine. The herbs he'd obtained from a cave had allowed him to fully absorb the mana from a saint bird. Gardner praised the result: mana and money from selling adamant all in one trip. Ain't agreed. Having connections with wealthy people was useful. Then he proposed something unexpected. Maybe it would be worthwhile to officially become friends with Fernan Pellenberg. Gardner nearly choked. He called Fernan a rich bastard. Ain't pointed out that Gardner himself just said connections with rich people were valuable. If that was true, befriending Fernan was the obvious move. Ain't thought it through further. When things got serious, people would inevitably spend money to solve problems. If Fernan understood the coming danger, he'd invest the necessary resources. Because of that, the best move might be to show Fernan a demon directly. The only problem? Ain't hadn't seen a demon himself yet. Still, he believed they'd eventually reveal themselves. Gardner immediately dropped a warning. Even if Ain't befriended Pellenberg, he should never fully trust him. The Pellenbergs once signed a contract with demons. They'd do anything if money was involved. Their reputation even inspired a saying that they'd do business with demons themselves. Ain't heard the warning and flat out rejected it. He insisted Fernan was merciful, generous, honorable, and incapable of ignoring injustice. His conviction was absolute. Gardner could argue all day Ain't wasn't budging. Then footsteps approached. Gardner told him to hide. Ain't refused. The person approaching was someone important. See, Bienderk, heir of the Bienderk family and the top first-year student in night studies, appeared looking for him. She explained that she'd received an invitation to the yacht club. Members were allowed to bring one guest, and she was asking Ain't to attend with her. Ain't was surprised. The yacht club was normally restricted to students from prestigious households. Vallacy confirmed that participation required a member's recommendation, but since he was an Armon, he qualified. Gardner's detective instincts kicked in immediately. If it was a yacht club gathering, Schwaben would likely be there. The spirit warned Ain't Schwaben was trying to lure him into a trap. People were already distancing themselves from Ain't because of Schwaben's influence. The prince pretended to be friendly while actively working to ruin him. Gardner insisted Ain't reject the invitation. Ain't started to agree. Then he stopped himself cold. Gardner flipped his entire position on the spot. Since the event involved going out to sea, Ain't should inform Fernan and attend. There was something important they needed to find there. Vallacy asked if that meant he was coming. After a brief hesitation, Ain't agreed. Now, about a certain angry red-haired knight who was eating lunch alone. Jace sat on a bench reflecting on how far he'd fallen. He was no longer the proud successor of the Kalbruden family. No longer the second-best first year in night studies. He was supposed to surpass the Armand student so his family could rise among the elector houses. Instead, he lost. After that defeat, the second prince abandoned him. And, to make everything worse, Ain't received an invitation to the yacht club, the very event Jace desperately wanted to attend. It came from the person Jace hoped to befriend. That position should have been his. At that moment, Ain't walked up to him, greeted him calmly, then asked a simple question: would Jace like to get lunch together? Jace exploded. He demanded to know why the invitation was being made. Ain't said Jace looked lonely. Jace snapped back that his loneliness was Ain't's fault. Everything changed after the defeat. The prince abandoned him. Nobody wanted to associate with him anymore. Mid-rant, Jace realized he'd said too much. He'd accidentally revealed that a Schwaben had been backing him. Relations between the two families were already strained. If Ain't figured out the connection, things could get even worse. Ain't responded calmly. He asked whether the prince had been Jace's friend, then said if that was the case, the loss was indeed his fault, and he apologized. Just like that. No schemes, no mockery, a genuine apology followed by a repeated invitation to eat together. Jace was completely thrown off. He couldn't figure out what angle Ain't was playing. Instead of accepting, he slammed a book down and declared that real life wasn't some heroic tale where enemies become friends. He stormed off. Later, Ain't told Gardner he'd expected the attempt to fail. Gardner reminded him that the plan was still necessary. Jace was highly skilled despite the duel loss, and without Gardner's help, Ain't never would have beaten him in the first place. Jace's biggest weakness wasn't talent, it was isolation. He had no real friends. Gardner pointed out that Schwaben's influence was the reason. If Jace truly had allies, he wouldn't be eating alone every day. Jace apparently overheard part of this. He reacted with anger but also something else interest. He declared that maybe it wasn't such a terrible idea for losers to band together. Then he drew his sword and attacked. After the fight subsided, Ain't offered Jace advice. He suggested that Jace try building a relationship with Kalbruden in the future. Jace hesitantly agreed, Ain't then explained that he'd need Jace's help later. Together, they intended to search for whatever legacy the founding emperor left behind. But there was a practical concern. Ain't wasn't sure if he'd be allowed to bring a sword to the yacht club meeting. Wearing a weapon with formal clothing would look ridiculous. Gardner interrupted with a solution. The sword contained mithril, which could absorb souls and possessed special properties. Ain't demonstrated one. The sword shrank in size, small enough to carry in a pocket. Gardner suggested wearing it as a necklace, claiming that style was fashionable in his era and popular with women. Ain't considered it for about 2 seconds, then dismissed it as tacky. Gardner complained that modern youth had no sense of style. Ain't decided shoving the sword in his pocket was easier. Meanwhile, Fernan's preparations for the yacht club were already running at full speed behind the scenes. Scarlet Turtle Knights had been stationed at the academy, ready to respond if monsters appeared. Recording spheres were placed throughout the cruise ship to monitor the demons during the voyage. One man still expressed doubt about the claim that demons had infiltrated the merchant guild. Even trusting the source, actual demons appearing in the present age seemed improbable. The response was blunt: the source had their own methods. Jace's role was also confirmed. Through his connections to the Dragon God Order, the group possessed extensive knowledge about demons. Regardless of the details, the primary objective was capturing the demons alive. After that, they'd investigate how the infiltration happened and how the demons concealed their identities. Fernan intended to accomplish this alongside Ain't Armian, whether Ain't knew it yet or not. The night of the yacht club arrived. Students gathered at the docks under fireworks lighting up the sky. One attendee noticed Ain't had arrived wearing his school uniform. The masked student Fernan asked whether that was a problem. Ain't said he'd tried to buy something formal, but didn't like how it looked. Fernan reached out a hand to Luina, explaining he had to escort her because she was his assigned partner. Luina asked if that meant they had to hold hands. Fernan confirmed those were the rules. Privately, Luina knew hand-holding wasn't actually required, but Fernan needed her within a certain distance to guarantee his survival during what was coming. Other attendees noticed Fernan and Luina together and remarked that the two seemed close. Nearby, Bella would also be helping with the operation. Her motivation was pure fury. She harbored deep resentment toward the demons who had infected her. When she'd first woken up after the purification, her anger was directed mainly at Jace for burning away her aura. Someone had helpfully redirected that rage toward the actual enemy. Then the moment everyone had been waiting for arrived. Schwaben and Armin face to face, the meeting between the two bloodlines. Inside the banquet hall, Ain't approached Ludger Schwaben. Gardner immediately recognized him and went ballistic, the noble from the bloodline that stole the imperial throne. The spirit urged Ain't to force him to kneel. Instead, Ain't bowed politely. He offered a formal greeting, addressing Ludger as Your Highness. Gardner nearly imploded. How could someone from the Armon bloodline bow to that man? Ain't stayed composed. They were inside the academy. Here everyone was treated equally regardless of noble status. No need for strict etiquette. Ludger laughed and told Ain't to remember that he was still a senior student. After the exchange, Gardner swore he would never forget the humiliation of watching an Armon bow to a Schwaben. While Ain't wondered about getting a drink, Gardner launched into detective mode. Someone at this gathering had to be scheming. There were 3 suspects. First, Ludger Schwaben, the second prince with every reason to oppose the Armon bloodline. Second, Fernan Pellenberg, wealthy enough to turn a social club into a full yacht club. Third, Bienderk, successor of a powerful household. Ain't immediately defended Fernan. Gardner admitted he couldn't fully read Fernan's intentions. If none of those suspects were responsible, maybe Valisy had simply lost her mind. Up on the yacht's upper deck, Fernan revealed the truth to someone privately. He was the one who gave Valisy the extra invitation. He'd predicted she'd invite Ain't. Since the two couldn't avoid each other forever, he forced the meeting. The invitation was also meant to assert Valisy's superiority. She was a senior of royal blood, after all. Fernan asked the blonde young man why he'd brought Luina. The answer was practical. She had both excellent academics and a respected household. Then he asked directly, did Ain't like her? Ain't dodged the question and walked away. Fernan complained privately about the evasiveness. Back inside, Ain't got serious. The real objective wasn't socializing, it was catching the demons. But something troubled him. Fernan hadn't appeared in the banquet hall. Where was he? A masked man greeted Luina warmly. Ain't approached and greeted her as well. Luina recognized him but accidentally called him Fernan. He corrected her awkwardly. His name was Ain't Armian. Nearby, Fernan watched the exchange from the shadows. Events were unfolding exactly as the prophecy described. Since he didn't interfere, the situation progressed naturally. He also noted it was wise to have invested in building a friendship with Luina earlier. He told Luina he needed to speak with her privately, and the two left together. Ain't watched them go, assuming they were close from working together in joint lessons. Gardner teased him, suggesting Ain't had dressed up specifically for Luina. Ain't denied it instantly. Elsewhere, two people discussed the expected events near a window overlooking the banquet. They didn't believe the demons boarded the yacht just to enjoy the party. Something would happen soon. Even if the yacht sank, the priority remained the same: chase and capture the demons. Measures had already been taken to ensure student survival. Their ultimate goal was capturing the demons alive. They also suspected that some people inside the academy were cooperating with the enemy. Identifying those collaborators was critical. Ain't considered his own strategy. For his plan to work, several events had to unfold exactly right. According to the prophecy, the yacht would sink. Ain't would be stranded on an island where the founding emperor's legacy remained. Demons would ambush him there. When Luina and Fernan chased the demonic energy and met Ain't on that island, the future would diverge from the prophecy. Then the night shattered. A dark-haired man approached Ain't and offered a drink. Ain't accepted. The conversation turned ice cold without warning. The man revealed he already knew the blonde young man's identity. He shouted the name, Ain't, and hurled a glass directly at him. Ain't dodged. The attacker launched a magical strike. Ain't blocked and countered with an energy slash. During the clash, he sensed something he'd never encountered before. The aura around his opponent felt completely wrong. A voice screamed the truth. Demonic energy? The attacker was a demon. Ain't couldn't believe it. A demon had disguised itself as an employee within the Pellenberg Merchant Guild. The fight tore through the banquet hall. Glass shattered. Rain hammered the yacht from outside. Then suddenly chaos beneath the waterline. Sea worms. Gigantic, writhing creatures surging through the water around the ship. People screamed in disgust and panic. Too many of them. Way too many. Didn't hesitate. He shouted for people to fight instead of watching. He unleashed flame magic against the creatures. Someone yelled at him to stop. Fire on a ship would sink them all. The flames had already begun spreading across parts of the deck. Underwater, Ain't fought the worms directly, dodging their strikes as they lunged through the dark water. On deck, another professional assassin appeared. The skill was obvious. The duel grew brutal. Then someone threw Ain't overboard. He crashed into the ocean, directly into the mass of sea worms. Observers on deck assumed the worst. He had to be dead. But Ain't resurfaced, cutting through the creatures with his sword. The demons weren't attacking randomly, they were targeting him specifically. The ocean erupted. A gigantic sea serpent burst from the water beside the ship, towering over the entire vessel. Orders flew night trainees to the front, magic students supporting from the rear. Ain't realized the ship was finished if the serpent kept attacking. He had to take it down. Gardner warned him the demons were clearly trying to kill him. The serpent lunged. Its attack caught someone off guard. Ain't shouted a warning. The impact was devastating. Waves crashed across the deck. Passengers panicked. And then everything went dark. Ain't woke up, collapsed on a shoreline. Gardner urgently asked if he was alive. He struggled to remember what happened. The last thing, the sea serpent's breath attack. It froze his body temporarily. While frozen, he lost consciousness. When the ship sank, he fell into the ocean. Gardner intervened using the power connected to the mithril sword, reversing the freezing effect and stabilizing Aint's body temperature. That's the only reason he survived. Ain't looked around and asked where they were. Gardner could barely contain his excitement. They'd arrived at the exact place they'd been searching for. This island was where the founding emperor left an important item. Gardner declared the emperor himself must have guided them here. He urged Ain't to hurry. They had to retrieve the item before any rescue team showed up. Ain't hesitated. He worried about the others from the yacht. Gardner reassured him. The club was composed of the academy's most talented students. They'd survive, but the danger was far from over. The blonde young man observed the battlefield from another position and realized the sea serpent was sinking beneath the waves. The demons, however, weren't stopping. They were still hunting their target. He'd expected one demon. Two were pursuing them. Gardner warned that these enemies wouldn't go down easily. The blonde young man drew his sword. The fight resumed. Red-eyed figures lunged from the shadows. Blades clashed. Then a wound appeared on Ain't's shoulder, and the attack carried poison. His energy drained, his movement slowed. The demons pressed their advantage, unleashing twin tornadoes of swirling sand and bursts of violent energy. Ain't countered desperately, slashing at both enemies while trying to stay upright. A powerful blast slammed into him, tearing a scream from his throat. The poison weakened him further. His aura faltered. Then a new figure appeared on the battlefield. A dark-haired man with red eyes approached Ain't calmly. He asked whether Ain't was alright and noted the wound. Ain't acknowledged the poison. The man immediately handed over an antidote, a small bottle to speed up the purification process. Ain't explained he was already using aura to cleanse it. Nearby, the man asked Fernan whether Ain't would recover. Fernan confirmed everything was under control. The person they'd lost earlier had been secured. Then another fighter arrived, carrying an unconscious body over her shoulder. She explained she hadn't actually lost the enemy, she deliberately let the other target escape. Capturing both demons alive would be far more interesting. Someone asked if the unconscious figure was dead. She replied it was only knocked out. After all, the instructions were to take them alive. Fernan reflected on the moment. At last, they'd captured a demon, but confusion lingered. The red-eyed man wondered whether the others had known about the demons beforehand. He asked if Ain't recognized the captured enemy. Ain't said he didn't know the person, but he'd expected something like this. The red-eyed man grew suspicious. He'd investigated every employee in the merchant guild personally. None showed signs of betrayal. Yet someone infiltrated anyway. Frustrated, he demanded to know who the blonde young man really was. Before the interrogation could continue, the captured demon started casting a spell. Ain't recognized it instantly, self-destruction. He screamed a warning. A nearby fighter yelled for everyone to move. The explosion ripped through the area. When the smoke cleared, Fernan and the others stood behind an aura shield. Someone asked if Fernan had predicted the explosion. He denied it, he'd simply refused to lower his guard. Privately, though, the truth was different. The prophecy had shown him this possibility. He would never allow himself to die from something that predictable. The red-eyed man thanked his partner for rushing to help. He joked that their lesson partnership would be ruined if something happened to her. She thanked him back. Then they both remembered someone important, Bella. They called for her to come out. Bella appeared. The group confirmed that the demon's actions had been recorded on magical devices. They finally possessed hard evidence. Someone complained that the outcome felt unfair. He'd wanted personal revenge against the demons. Bella, meanwhile, was still recovering. The demonic energy that once infected her had burned away much of her aura during purification. She had to avoid overexerting herself. Someone told her not to worry. Then a sound echoed from the ocean that froze everyone in place, a massive cry, unmistakable. The sea serpent had followed them all the way to the island. Fernan made a quick decision. Luina would face the monster for now while he moved Ain't to safety. Once the poison cleared, Ain't would return to help. Someone asked what would happen if Fernan just ran away instead. Luina shut that down immediately. Fernan wasn't the type to abandon people. He would come back. As Fernan carried Ain't away from the shoreline, the route he chose wasn't random. It led them closer to the founding emperor's hidden treasure. After reaching a forest clearing, they stopped. Fernan thanked Ain't for helping him get there. He explained that removing poison with aura required intense concentration, and the quiet forest provided the perfect environment. Then, the blonde young man looked at Fernan seriously. He asked him to tell the truth. Fernan replied calmly. The blonde young man already knew everything. The conversation that followed cracked open the situation entirely. In the quiet of the island at night, Ain't revealed something that stunned Fernan. He also knew about the prophecy. The founding emperor had predicted the return of demons. As his descendant, Ain't had only recently learned about it. Then he turned the question around. If Ain't only just discovered the prophecy, how did the others already know? Fernan silently admitted to himself that he hadn't known about the prophecy in the way Ain't assumed. Ain't recalled that Luina seemed to know about it already. He began forming his own conclusions. Certain families among the elector houses must have secretly known about the founding emperor's prophecy all along. They'd been quietly preparing for the demon's return. Fernan debated whether to correct him. Ain't sounded so convinced that revealing the full truth now would only complicate things. Instead, Fernan explained how he'd actually discovered the demons while investigating suspicious financial activity within the merchant guild. He'd stumbled onto evidence. At that time, he'd never even heard of any prophecy. Every time he encountered a demon, he sensed an unmistakable, unpleasant energy. Ain't listened, but quietly suspected the explanation wasn't completely honest. Before the conversation could continue, Fernan realized they couldn't sit here theorizing. Others were still fighting. They had to move. Ain't agreed, suggesting they discuss the details later. As they pushed through the forest, Gardner spoke up. The poison was nearly gone. He instructed Ain't to head left toward the center of the island. That was where the founding emperor's hidden item waited. Ain't paused in confusion. Gardner clarified they were already incredibly close. It was a remarkable coincidence. They'd washed ashore on the exact island where the treasure lay, and their path had already brought them near its location. Gardner declared the founding emperor must be guiding them. Lucky day. Ain't reflected on that statement with a deadpan expression. Lucky. He'd nearly died fighting monsters, then nearly died again facing demons. Gardner insisted the emperor's guidance explained their survival. Ain't then noticed something odd. Gardner had been unusually quiet earlier while Fernan was speaking. The spirit who never stopped talking had gone completely silent. He asked why. Gardner answered honestly. Fernan appeared at the perfect moment during the battle. Gardner suspected Fernan might attempt something dangerous, so he chose to observe. But the situation turned out differently. Fernan had already been hunting the demons himself. Gardner then commented on another person's strength. He'd known Luina was talented, but he hadn't realized how powerful Burke truly was. She'd defeated those demons easily, while Ain't had struggled against them. Ain't admitted the skill gap felt enormous. Burke was only 1 year older. If he could fight alongside someone like her or Fernan, dealing with demons would become far easier. Gardner immediately objected. Don't trust the Pellenbergs. They once sold items to demons. Ain't got irritated. Gardner always brought up that story. Gardner countered that Ain't always repeated the same argument. Those events happened 1,000 years ago. In the end, the Pellenbergs fought alongside humanity. That's why they became an elector house. Gardner asked why Ain't kept hating Fernan for something that happened centuries ago. Ain't accused Gardner of acting like Fernan's lawyer. Gardner complained that young people never listened to their elders. Ain't went quiet. He admitted privately that Burke was simply much stronger. If they truly fought together, he might only slow everyone down. Gardner dismissed the concern, no reason to worry about that. Then Gardner's voice brightened suddenly. They'd arrived. A massive tree stood before them. Gardner revealed the truth. Inside that tree was a miracle medicine created by the founding emperor himself. Ain't was stunned. The medicine was hidden inside an entire tree. He asked how he was supposed to retrieve it. Gardner's answer was beautifully simple. Stab the tree, the medicine will appear. Ain't drove his sword in. A glowing object emerged. The miracle medicine. Gardner explained that this wasn't an ordinary elixir. The founding emperor had created it to reshape the bodies of his descendants. If a descendant lacked affinity for the light element, the medicine would force that affinity into their body, enabling them to learn the Armin family's secret sword techniques. But if someone who already possessed light affinity consumed it like Ain't, the effect was different. Instead of restructuring the body, it amplified aura to a tremendous degree. That transformation was about to matter more than anyone expected. Back on the shore, the battle against the sea worm raged. A powerful fighter charged the monster, his sword erupting with energy. Red slashes tore across the creature's body. Then the energy shifted. Blue lightning began crackling along the blade. The strikes landed harder, but observers realized the fight was almost hopeless. The sea worm's exterior was absurdly hard. Raining massive stones onto it had done almost nothing. Beheading it seemed impossible. The monster's resilience was clearly supernatural, strengthened by demonic influence. Even fatal injuries weren't killing it. The fighter reached a conclusion. He needed Ain't. Then the forest edge erupted with light. Ain't charged onto the battlefield, his sword blazing with radiant energy. The Armon swordsmanship, the real thing. His blade crashed down onto the sea worm's head, and the creature screamed. Observers watched in awe. The ancient text describing the founding emperor's techniques hadn't been exaggerating. They described a radiant sword capable of driving away despair and darkness. A sword of hope. A light that illuminates the world. As Ain't hammered the monster with blow after blow, someone watching reached a quiet conclusion. Ain't Armian would be their greatest weapon in the war against demons. After the creature finally fell, the group gathered on the shoreline. Someone thanked Ain't for saving them. Another asked how they'd get home. Robin explained he'd already sent a signal rescue would arrive soon. Then the discussion turned to the sea worm's corpse. Schwaben casually claimed it unless anyone objected. Most declined. Bella protested that she'd helped fight and deserved a share. Schwaben shut her down. She already owed him a debt. He'd purified the demonic energy inside her, remember? Bella gave up the argument. Raised one more concern. If people were already being corrupted by demonic energy, then real demons would inevitably appear. Fernan confirmed the possibility. Later, Ain't approached Fernan directly. He declared that he wanted to help. He wanted to fight the demons together. Inside Fernan's head, fireworks went off. He'd been wondering how to bring the blonde young man onto his side. Now the opportunity arrived on its own. They shook hands. The alliance was formed. Fernan quietly celebrated. Everything went even smoother than expected. The next stage of his plan was already working. The aftermath reshaped the Academy's landscape. On-water combat lectures were established because of the yacht incident, and the Academy began ordering ships. The business was wildly profitable. Someone asked if Fernan had predicted this outcome. He said there was no way to predict it exactly, but the timing worked perfectly. While others marveled at his foresight, Fernan began drafting something new during his free time, a blueprint for an ego golem. He also investigated the Merchant Guild infiltration. The demons had planted themselves only a few days before the yacht meeting. When employees were questioned, their answers were chilling. They believed those demons had always worked there. Completely normal. The implication was terrifying. The demons used psychological magic, manipulating memories and perception. They specialized in the mind and soul. If they could influence the soul itself, other strange events might also be explained. Fernan's network continued expanding. Two women discussed the recent events, admitting the existence of demons had shocked them despite believing in demonic energy corruption. One asked why Fernan instructed them not to inform the Academy. The answer was pragmatic. They couldn't distinguish allies from enemies yet. If the wrong people learned the truth, the demons would vanish. One woman said she trusted Fernan's judgment. They'd been working together since being paired for lessons. Rumors claimed she'd befriended Fernan because of his wealth. The truth was different. She approached him to help capture demons. Working with someone she disliked wasn't pleasant, but she accepted it for the greater good. Ain't felt the shift too. Now that he could openly discuss fighting demons with Fernan, the burden he'd been carrying alone felt lighter. Having the Pellenbergs as allies was infinitely better than opposing them. He even noted that working with Fernan meant encountering Luina more often, but the danger remained real. Bella's corruption proved demonic energy was already spreading. If left unchecked, humans could transform into demons themselves. They needed more allies. Ain't traveled to meet one. Varian Kalbruden was already waiting. He recognized Ain't immediately, but offered zero warmth. He told the visitor not to act friendly and to get to the point. Ain't explained Fernan sent him. They were now hunting demons together, and Fernan believed Varian could help. Varian studied him carefully, then called him skilled. Ain't reacted with surprise. Varian immediately snapped. He refused to hear praise from the man who'd defeated him. Was this mockery? Later, through Fernan's intervention, the full picture emerged. Varian had been corrupted by a demon during the midterm exams. He'd passed out during a duel and would have been in serious danger if Fernan hadn't stepped in. The demon had manipulated him, and Varian couldn't even remember what happened. The memory was completely blank. The recruitment wasn't smooth. A red-haired woman confronted Fernan furiously. He'd promised not to reveal a certain secret, yet he'd told Ain't Armian her greatest rival. Fernan clarified that his promise was only to avoid turning her over to the judges, not absolute secrecy. He asked whether Ain't had threatened her for money. The woman's anger exploded in a different direction entirely. The real humiliation wasn't money. She'd been forced to eat lunch with Ain't. The thought of people believing they were friends embarrassed her to the core. Fernan teased her, was that really worth crying about? Eventually, Fernan confronted Varian directly through Ain't. The pitch was calculated. Ain't was actively hunting demons. If Varian stayed near him, he might encounter the demon responsible for his own corruption. That was his chance for revenge. Fernan challenged him further. How long would Varian keep regretting what happened? He thought Varian was a knight. Was this really the limit of his resolve? Varian answered. The reason he'd accept the arrangement was exactly that, revenge. He raised his sword and made a public declaration. He, Varian Kalbruden, would cooperate with Ain't Armian despite their rivalry. Together they would eliminate the demons. Only then would he achieve his revenge. The alliance grew larger. Ain't, Armin, and Varian connected by the same goal. Life at the academy continued alongside the conspiracy. A formal gathering focused on monster research. Attendance was called Kirilo Denov, Ludger Schwaben, and eventually Fernan, who arrived late after speaking with someone. The instructor explained the day's theme, cooperation. Some monsters were too powerful for a single person to defeat. Creatures with bodies too durable for weapons or magic resistance that rendered even skilled mages useless. Teamwork was essential. Students examined golem dummies, artificial constructs mimicking real monsters. Training pairs stepped forward. Kirilo Denov and Alia Torda finished in 2 minutes and 58 seconds. Ludger Schwaben and Alman Donertz completed theirs in 2 minutes 15. The skill gap between the top teams was obvious. Then the instructor called the next pair. Fernan Pellenberg and Luina Burchef. Their opponent, a Goliath. 3 meters tall, stone-covered body, extremely resistant to both physical attacks and magic. Observers expected a brutal fight. Fernan and Luina discussed strategy. The weakness was the neck. One person holds it, the other strikes. Problem was, the Goliath moved surprisingly fast for its size. The battle began. Observers watched nervously. Some started wondering if the pair had already failed. The instructor questioned whether a Goliath was too difficult for second years. Then Luina cast her spell. Magic restraints locked the monster in place. Fernan positioned himself behind her and taunted the creature confidently. Moments later, rocks and debris rained down onto the Goliath from above. The observer's jaws dropped. The monster was buried and immobilized. Fernan called out one word to Luina. Finish it. The fight ended. The instructor evaluated their method. Executing that strategy required a tremendous amount of mana. Despite the difficulty, they'd pulled it off flawlessly. Completion time, 53 seconds. First place. Other students reacted with disbelief. Some complained about finishing second again. Others wondered how much mana that technique even required. Fernan quietly celebrated. Partnering with Luina produced results that spoke for themselves. He believed he'd gained favor with her once more. But when he looked in her direction, something felt wrong. Luina didn't appear pleased at all. After training ended, they walked together through the academy. Luina complimented his performance. She said he was impressive, that she saw a new side of him every time they worked together. Fernan asked if that was a compliment. She confirmed it was. They'd achieved first place thanks to him. Despite the praise, her expression betrayed something else. Fernan pointed out she looked like she was pouting. Luina denied it at first. Then she admitted the truth. That was her first time fighting a monster dummy. Because of that, she wanted to fight it longer and gain more experience. Fernan realized his mistake. The second-place team took 2 minutes 15 seconds. If he deliberately slowed down, Luina could have enjoyed the fight more. He reflected privately, even if someone behaves kindly 99 times, people often remember the one time they felt disappointed. Luina tried to reassure him. She said she was still satisfied because they won. Then she offered something unexpected. Her household owned several monster dummies. If Fernan wanted one, she could give it to him. Fernan politely declined. Accepting felt excessive. But he noticed her expression didn't match her words. She'd hoped he would say yes. The conversation ended peacefully. Luina left for her next class. As Fernan watched her go, an orange-haired girl appeared out of nowhere and casually demanded he buy her coffee. Fernan responded coldly. If she had something to say, just say it. She complained about his attitude. Then the real reason surfaced. Her household had sent a message about a transportation task. Fernan asked if she was the one who recommended him. She confirmed it cheerfully. The task involved something extraordinary, a branch from the world tree. Fernan's blood went cold. The girl Arya Friedian explained that her family planned to donate the branch to the academy. She chose Fernan specifically because having the heir of a powerful household handle the transportation changed the burden of responsibility entirely. Fernan understood the significance immediately. A world tree branch was extraordinarily rare. The tree produced a sapling only once every 100 years. That branch contained immense mana and the essence of the forest. Its presence continuously influenced the surrounding land. He wondered what could possibly cause the Friedian family to give something so valuable away. Arya suggested they become friends since they'd be working together. Fernan questioned the logic. Elector houses usually had little reason to get close. She argued that friendship didn't cause financial losses. She confirmed the task would require him to skip classes, but the academy had already made arrangements. Then a violent sensation tore through Fernan's mind. Lightning-like energy surged through his body, a vision, the sky turning red, people running in panic, demonic energy spreading everywhere. And at the center of the destruction, the World Tree branch serving as the key resource in a summoning circle. The demon Andromalius descending upon the world. The branch had been corrupted, and because the Golden Turtle Merchant Guild transported it, the Pellenberg family would be blamed. Fernan snapped back to reality, his heart hammering. He now knew the full horror of what was coming, and somehow he had to stop it. The vision wouldn't leave him. Fernan already knew what the prophecy said. The Pellenberg family would be accused of cooperating with demons. People would point to the corrupted branch, the yacht incident, the merchant guild, and connect every thread straight back to his household. The accusations echoed in his mind. Traitors to humanity. Hey. He grabbed Aint's arm in the vision and told him to wait, insisted he wasn't working with demons. But the tension was suffocating. Nobody believed him. The prophecy didn't describe exactly how, when, or where the branch would become corrupted. Both the academy and the Friedian estate maintained airtight security. Fernan couldn't pinpoint the moment of corruption no matter how hard he analyzed it. And the worst part? Even if he somehow transported the branch safely, the prophecy still held. Andromalius would descend regardless. If the World Tree branch couldn't be used as a vessel, the demon would simply find another one. The situation carried enormous risk with almost no chance of success. If his family became too deeply involved, the entire Pellenberg household could be branded as demon collaborators. Fernan considered withdrawing entirely. He admitted the problem might be too large for him to solve alone. Then he called for Hyde and ordered him to bring the sphere containing the captured demon. He was done keeping secrets from his father. That night, Fernan met with two older men and presented the glowing sphere. Inside it, a demonic figure was visible. He explained everything: the yacht club, the infiltration, the captured demon imprisoned in the academy's underground storage. Hyde confirmed the report. One of the men reacted with shock, demanding to know why this information wasn't reported earlier. Hyde explained he'd been ordered to stay silent while they gathered more proof, but circumstances had become urgent. The men processed the information and reached a troubling conclusion. They believed the demons might be specifically targeting the Pellenberg family for destruction. One participant acknowledged the yacht incident was caused by demons and agreed they were now targeting the World Tree branch, but doing nothing would lead to misunderstandings and accusations. Another argued that concluding the demons wanted to destroy their household might be premature. Then the historical analysis changed everything. 1,000 years earlier, during the war against demons, the Pellenberg Patriarch sided with the founding emperor and provided enormous financial support. That funding significantly strengthened humanity's resistance. Demons would remember how important money was in warfare. They'd want to avoid repeating their past mistake. The theory crystallized. The demons created a trap. Instead of attacking the Pellenbergs directly, they manipulated events to involve the family. By doing so, they could cause Aint to doubt Fernan. If suspicion spread, the alliance would collapse. The prophecy predicting Fernan's downfall wasn't coincidence. It was an engineered setup. Someone declared the demon's true objective: eliminate the Pellenberg family entirely. In a dimly lit study, another figure analyzed the same events. Luina and Bella had both been present at the yacht incident. After fighting demons together, they likely grew closer. Was it really possible for only 4 people to defeat a sea serpent? The answer lay with Aint Armian and the founding emperor's gift. Originally, the demons tried to kill Aint directly. When that failed, they attempted to turn Aint against Fernan. The plan backfired. It strengthened their cooperation instead. New orders came down. Arya Friedian had contacted Fernan. Whether or not he would personally participate in the transportation remained uncertain. The order was absolute: ensure Fernan becomes involved no matter what. If Ain't Armian was the sharpest blade against demons, then Fernan Pellenberg was the gold surrounding that blade. Fernan had to be ruined this time. Meanwhile, Fernan had already tried to escape the trap. He made a deliberately unreasonable request: move the mission schedule forward by 1 week. The demand was designed to anger the Freudian family into rejecting it, giving him a clean exit. The response shocked him. Arya sent a letter confirming her father agreed. The unexpected acceptance raised new suspicions. Demonic influence might already be at work. Fernan felt the same frustration mounting. He knew what the demons were doing. He still couldn't stop them. Even with immense wealth and his position among the elector houses, he felt powerless. His frustration hit the breaking point. Waiting passively would solve nothing. If there was a problem, the only solution was confrontation. He announced his decision: he would face the demons directly. An observer noticed how shaken he appeared. Despite the confident words, the pressure was clearly eating at him. 6 days later, the convoy departed from the Freudian estate. The scale was staggering: 10 carriages, 100 guards from the Golden Turtle Merchant Guild, 50 elf warriors from the Freudian household, another 100 workers. At the head of the entire operation rode Fernan Pellenberg. Inside the 4th carriage, sealed in a chest covered with dozens of protection spells, lay the World Tree Branch. Only Fernan and Arya possessed the authority to open it. The journey was supposed to take about a month. They needed to cross 2 eastern territories and then travel by ship. During the trip, Ain't casually asked whether Fernan would invite him to the yacht club. Fernan refused without hesitation. Ain't complained. Fernan explained that, despite his family's rank and his academic performance, many Elector House members still disliked him because the Pellenbergs were relatively new among them. Far from the convoy, political machinery was already turning. Information about demons was being shared with the Dragon God Order through Jace. Help was expected soon. The Order would assist in eliminating demons hiding among them. Someone assumed Fernan should have reached the academy already. The truth was revealed: the convoy had only just departed that day. The situation was obviously a demon trap. Despite knowing this, they had no choice but to proceed. If the transportation failed, the Merchant Guild's reputation would collapse. The stakes climbed even higher for the noble family. One nobleman became furious. If the demons succeeded, he could lose his only son and heir. He demanded military mobilization. Someone urgently stopped him. Taking such drastic action would reveal they knew the demons' plan. The situation had to be handled quietly. The nobleman eventually calmed down. He reflected on Fernan's unusual abilities. The boy had discovered a mana stone vein nobody else knew about. He possessed extremely precise intelligence. It almost felt as if he'd already seen the future. His advisors agreed once this crisis ended, they'd have many questions for him. Despite the danger, they remained confident. Fernan had never failed to surpass expectations. Deep in a forest, Fernan noticed something wrong. The weather forecast predicted clear skies, yet rain hammered down without warning. He consulted the spirits and learned that every surrounding region was experiencing perfect weather. Only their location was being drenched. The rain was artificial. If it was artificially created, the most likely explanation was demonic interference. Someone nervously suggested it might be ordinary bad weather. Fernan stayed deadly serious. According to the prophecy, they were supposed to reach the academy safely, but the situation suggested sabotage. The critical realization came fast. If the rain was part of a trap, someone had already infiltrated their group. The World Tree Branch could be contaminated without anyone noticing. Before the thought finished, a violent magical explosion erupted from the container carrying the branch. Debris scattered everywhere. Fernan and Ain't lost their footing as the ground collapsed beneath them. Fernan shouted for Arya to protect the carriages, all of them, but the ground kept breaking open. Multiple carriages fell into a massive pit. Fernan and Ain't went down with them. 40 meters underground. The carriage carrying the branch had fallen too, but the container survived. For one breath, it seemed like the worst had been avoided. Then dark energy began spreading through the cavern. A monstrous figure materialized. Fernan identified it immediately as he explained the distinction to the others. Monsters existed naturally on the continent. Demonic creatures were different. They were brought into the world by demons. Just like the humans that demons sometimes possess, because of their origin, demonic creatures constantly emit demonic energy. The realization horrified everyone. If demonic creatures were present, demons truly existed in the current era. More enemies emerged from the darkness. Fernan issued quick orders: get the carriages back to the surface. He'd handle the creatures. Privately, he doubted whether he could manage alone. Then something worse appeared. A Barca, 4th-rank demonic creature. Body as hard as metal. Claws sharper than most swords. Jaws that could pierce almost anything. Compared to the 8th-rank Sades, the gap in power was enormous. Sending a Barca suggested the demon's real objective wasn't stealing the branch. It was eliminating Fernan. The Barca launched a devastating energy attack. Fernan shouted one name: Hyde. A powerful explosion followed. When the dust cleared, his loyal butler stood beside him, asking if the young master was all right. Fernan asked if Hyde could kill the Barca. Hyde answered honestly, not easy, but possible with time. Fernan made his decision. He'd stall the creature while Hyde prepared the killing blow. Arya had to protect both Fernan and the branch from the Sades. The battle was a nightmare. Fernan confronted the Barca despite the overwhelming danger. Arya hesitated, shocked by the terrifying creature before her. Fernan insisted follow his instructions or die. Arya asked if he had a plan. Fernan said he intended to call someone, James. Even he wasn't sure it would work. Purple energy exploded from his hands and slammed into the demonic creature. The cavern shook. Then a golem appeared. Multiple golems. Fernan controlled them through his magic while fighting simultaneously. He quickly realized controlling golems in combat was infinitely harder than using them for mining. The enemy controlling opposing golems was clearly skilled. The Barca's claws slashed toward Fernan with tremendous force. More golems appeared on the enemy's side. The fight became a multi-front war underground. Sades approached the World Tree branch. Fernan screamed for Arya to protect it. She cast defensive magic green energy, formed a barrier around the carriage. Despite her efforts, the pressure overwhelmed her. Holding the spell for so long drained her rapidly. Meanwhile, a glowing purple figure appeared. He reminded Fernan that he'd saved his life multiple times and that Fernan now owed him. The reinforcement shifted the battle's momentum, but the cost was mounting. Mages controlling golems feel damage through the connection. When a golem is destroyed, the mage absorbs the impact. Fernan coughed blood. 3 golems down, only 2 remaining, mana nearly depleted. He refused to die here. He had to hold until Hyde returned. Recognizing his weakness with swordsmanship, Fernan abandoned weapons entirely and poured everything into the golem connection. He moved the golem as if it were his own body. It charged forward and slammed a demonic creature across the cavern. But the underground structure couldn't take the punishment. The ceiling began collapsing. Rocks and debris rained down. Fernan threw up a magical shield while maintaining golem control. Claws slashed, debris fell, magic erupted in every direction. Still, Fernan refused to stop. He called for Hyde, couldn't hold forever. The pressure kept mounting. Then he focused on the last enemy, declared it, the last one. With a decisive slash through his golem, he cut down the final demonic creature. The enemy fell. The battle ended. Fernan surveyed the aftermath and immediately complained he'd lost 4 expensive golems. Despite the frustration, the fight wasn't entirely over. Another explosion erupted nearby, forcing everyone behind a shield. Hyde checked on him. Fernan confirmed he'd survived. The blast might have destroyed the physical evidence of the demons, but Fernan had already recorded everything on a magical device. He handed the sphere to Hyde for safekeeping. Hyde suggested collecting the Barca corpses as 4th-ranked demonic creatures. Their bodies were extremely valuable. But the most important question remained, the World Tree branch. An ally ran over with good news. Despite the explosion damaging the chest, the branch appeared intact. The protection spells had held. Fernan refused to trust appearances. Demonic contamination couldn't be detected visually. That's why he'd prepared a special artifact in advance, expensive but capable of detecting demonic energy. He tested the branch. The artifact reacted violently, contaminated. Every ounce of suffering, every golem lost, every drop of blood spilled, all for nothing. Fernan's composure shattered. He snapped the branch in rage. Others screamed at him. Then someone said the words that brought him back. The branch could still be saved. If the corrupted sections were cut away cleanly, the remaining part would survive. The World Tree possessed extraordinary life force. Hope returned like a punch to the chest. They worked fast, cutting away the darker sections before the contamination spread further. Piece by piece, the tainted portions were removed. The branch survived, but it looked noticeably trimmed. Anyone examining it carefully would realize something went wrong during transportation. Someone suggested hiding the truth to protect the guild's reputation. Fernan corrected them. Reputation wasn't the concern. If news spread, the demons would disappear into hiding, making them infinitely harder to hunt. The incident had to remain secret. Arya realized what that meant. By keeping the secret, she'd become Fernan's ally against the demons. Fernan confirmed it. She jokingly asked whether that meant they'd be spending a lot of time together. He said yes. Then she requested proof of the alliance, something in return for keeping the secret forever. Fernan thought for a moment and offered her an invitation to the yacht club. She accepted happily. The group cleaned up the battlefield. Damaged carriages were replaced. Injured personnel swapped out, and the World Tree branch was treated with miracle medicine to restore its appearance. By the time they reached the academy 1 month later, the branch looked exactly as it had before the journey. From the outside, the transportation appeared flawless. The Merchant Guild's reputation survived. Nobody could accuse the Pellenbergs of cooperating with demons. The cost of that illusion was staggering. Fernan swore he would kill every demon responsible. Elsewhere, the demons discussed the failure. Their agent insisted he'd successfully corrupted the branch. But they couldn't find it anymore. The plan had failed. The shadowy figure concluded the agent simply made a mistake. The agent apologized in fear. Then the question arose, how did Fernan survive the Barca? He'd prepared 5 golems in advance. The shadowy figure wondered whether Fernan somehow knew about their plan. More likely, he was just absurdly cautious. The demons mocked the situation. The failure happened because Fernan was too meticulous. Despite the setback, the demons remained patient. They weren't in a hurry. But quietly, the shadowy figure decided something. Fernan Pellenberg was becoming more troublesome than Ain't Armian. Eventually, Fernan had to die. After returning, Fernan reported to Professor Grad. Demonic creatures had openly appeared during the journey. The demons weren't even trying to hide anymore. Grad was stunned. Fernan presented a piece of wood tainted with demonic energy cut from the World Tree branch. Grad offered to purify it. However, his usual method, Holy Lightning, would be too powerful and could destroy the fragile wood. The only remaining option was Holy Water. Grad had never purified demonic energy with it before. Despite the uncertainty, he believed it should work. Then Fernan produced something else, a Barca corpse. 4th-rank demonic creature. Grad lost his composure entirely. Studying such a creature would provide invaluable information about demons and demonic energy. He called Fernan his savior. The exchange was negotiated. The corpse and the holy water purification didn't balance out evenly, but the research value made everything worthwhile. Grad then suggested a possible explanation for the demon's interest in the branch. It contained enormous mana and could serve as a vessel to summon a demon. Fernan was impressed. Grad had guessed the truth almost perfectly. Acting aggressively would create political complications, so for now they'd watch carefully. The Pope himself was already concerned about demons infiltrating the academy. Security around the World Tree branch was tightened. Meanwhile, life continued. The semester's final exams arrived. Students were divided into 4 teams. Victory required capturing opponents or taking flags. Team 3 chose its leader through a vote, and to Fernan's disbelief, everyone picked him. He tried to push the role onto Luina. She had the highest grades. She'd make a better leader. Luina refused and told him she believed in him. The team chanted his name. Fernan, deeply embarrassed, asked them to stop. Observers analyzed the competition. Team 1 had the greatest advantage under Ludger Schwaben, a prince with real military command experience. But if other teams cooperated, they could eliminate Team 1 early. Team 2 included Carrillo. Team 3 had Fernan and Luina. The balance resembled a 3-faction war. Rumors circulated about Fernan and Luina. Were they dating? Most suspected political maneuvering between the Pellenberg and Burchef families. When the exam began, teams appeared to be converging on Team 1. Observers assumed cooperation against Ludger. Inside Team 1, Ludger recognized the pattern and suspected Fernan was orchestrating it, but Ludger wasn't worried. He'd already contacted Teams 2 and 4 secretly. They were pretending to follow Fernan's alliance while planning to betray him. Carrillo still held resentment over the midterms. When Ludger suggested attacking Fernan from behind, Carrillo enthusiastically agreed. Fernan knew. He told a teammate they weren't heading toward Team 1 at all. While Teams 2 and 4 fought Ludger, Fernan would infiltrate their bases and steal their flags. His teammate was stunned. Team 3 had proposed the alliance. Fernan admitted it plainly. Yes, he intended to betray them. The weakest members were guarding the bases. Only 2 people were needed. The knight with him struggled with the concept. Betraying allies violated the code of honor. She ultimately accepted. Winning mattered more. Fernan explained his reasoning. Blindly prioritizing honor in this competition would make someone a laughingstock. He was certain Teams 2 and 4 had already betrayed the agreement anyway. Ludger would send his strongest fighter, Alman Donnertz, to eliminate Team 4 first. That meant Ludger and Alman were currently separated. Fernan smiled. This was the real objective from the beginning. In the forest, Luina confronted Alman alone. He was surprised. He expected Team 3 elsewhere. Luina explained calmly that Fernan predicted he'd be here. Their fight was brutal and even. Both demonstrated exceptional skill. When Luina began tiring, Alman asked if she wanted to stop. He mocked her. Protecting ideals without sufficient strength was foolish. Luina refused to yield. Then Fernan appeared from nowhere and slammed Alman to the ground. He'd been waiting for the perfect moment, attacking only after Alman relaxed his guard against Luina. Alman realized immediately the entire fight had been a setup. Fernan admitted it without a shred of guilt. Team 4 lost their flag and was eliminated. Team 1 chased Team 2 for revenge but walked into another ambush. Fernan and Luina had been systematically picking off teams one by one. Fernan then confronted Carrillo directly. The exchange was vicious. Carrillo demanded to know what unfair tactics Fernan used. Fernan listed every possible reason for Carrillo's hatred: the midterms, the Luina partnership, the first-place ranking. Carrillo challenged Fernan to a mage duel. Fernan refused. He wasn't a traditional mage. He was a merchant. Merchants prioritized efficiency. He didn't need a fair fight to win. The battle reached a stalemate. Both remaining teams shifted to defensive strategies. To break the deadlock, instructors changed the rules. The exam area shrank, forcing teams closer. Each team had to choose a single flag carrier. If eliminated, the entire team lost. Fernan selected Gert and loaded him with powerful defensive artifacts worth a fortune. Gert was shocked by the quality. Fernan didn't care about the cost. Winning as team leader mattered more. A blue-haired opponent ambushed Fernan's team, claiming they'd been waiting. Fernan showed no fear. The enemy demanded to know why Fernan had suddenly started competing for the top. Fernan responded that he'd never truly been trying before. The enemy prepared team magic, multiple mages combining their power into one devastating spell. The drawback was massive mana drain. Fernan ordered Luina to interrupt the casting. She charged and disrupted the formation, but the enemy had secretly used an artifact to shorten casting time. The spell completed anyway. The explosion destroyed the ground beneath them. Fernan and Luina fell into a cavern. They survived thanks to defensive artifacts. Underground, Luina noticed something on the wall, a seal. Fernan recognized it immediately, the emblem of House Armian, the founding emperor's lineage. It included coordinates. A secret dungeon created by the Armian family, likely containing something connected to their legacy. On the surface, the blue-haired leader celebrated, believing Fernan was dead. Then Fernan appeared alive. The enemy's jaw dropped. Fernan told Luina one thing: finish him. The battle concluded. The semester rankings were announced. Luina Burchef first place in both the knight and mage classes. Fernan congratulated her, but noticed she didn't look happy. She explained that although she won, it wasn't entirely her own effort. Fernan had helped her many times. She worried she was burdening him. Fernan dismissed the concern instantly. He'd never thought of her as a burden. In fact, he'd achieved his own success partly because of her. Luina relaxed and promised to work even harder. Before leaving, she said she hoped they could continue as partners. Fernan quietly felt satisfied. Luina liked him even more now. Later, a blonde companion noticed Fernan's good mood. He joked about the first-place finish. Fernan admitted he hadn't been aiming for it, but the result felt good. An intense glare burned into his back. The former first-place student was furious. The companion commented that the exam had many unexpected variables, but was surprised Fernan and Luina secured the top spot. Fernan redirected the praise. The most surprising result belonged to Ain't Armian. The kid entered the academy ranked 38th. In a single semester, he'd climbed to second place. Fernan internally praised the progress. Ain't was developing exactly as expected. He even imagined Ain't's value rising like a rapidly increasing stock. But Fernan already knew something the others didn't. There was a secret site left by the founding emperor. Once Ain't discovered what lay there, his strength would increase even further. Not long after the semester ended, Fernan returned to the forest near the academy. He brought Ain't and Gardner with him. Their destination, a secret site connected to the founding emperor. Ain't questioned Fernan immediately. If the location was so important, why hadn't he mentioned it earlier? Fernan's answer was almost too honest. There were many secret locations left by the founding emperor scattered across the world. He'd simply forgotten about this particular one until someone reminded him during a conversation about finances. Gardner complained that the new informant couldn't be trusted. The spirit believed the man usually stole valuable information rather than shared it. Fernan agreed trusting him would be foolish. Still, the information about the location appeared genuine. The forest looked normal again despite the damage from the academy exams. Fernan confirmed they'd reached the correct spot. According to Gardner, the inheritance site lay underground. They found the entrance to a hidden tunnel and began descending into the cavern below. Inside, Gardner commented on the ceiling pattern protecting the site. Fernan believed the entrance had been carefully concealed, but something immediately worried him. There were signs that someone had already been there before them. As they moved deeper, Fernan's senses screamed. A demonic aura filled the underground chamber. He recognized the energy instantly. Demons were present. He couldn't understand how the demons had discovered a location this secret, but there was no time for analysis. They had to eliminate the intruders first. Fernan drew his glowing sword and charged. With incredible speed, he cut down several demonic creatures guarding the area. Gardner praised Fernan's movements. Fernan shouted for Ain't to stay alert and move fast. The battle intensified immediately. Then something far worse stepped out of the darkness. A true demon. The creature radiated overwhelming demonic energy, a completely different magnitude from the Sades and Burke they'd fought before. The demon began mocking Fernan immediately. According to it, Fernan's bloodline was cursed. That curse made him a major obstacle to their plans. Fernan understood the gravity of the situation. This enemy was stronger than anything they'd faced. The demon issued its command without hesitation. Ain't Armian must die. The attack came from above. Someone screamed a warning. Fernan dodged the strike at the last second and tried to locate the demon's position. The creature moved with terrifying speed, unpredictable and violent. But Fernan responded with speed of his own. His sword strikes became so fast that the demon could barely track them. The demon realized something shocking. Fernan's combat ability exceeded its expectations entirely. Even a demon couldn't clearly see his attacks. Despite the advantage, the battle shifted without warning. The demon managed to land a critical strike. Its blade pierced Fernan's chest. The demon declared coldly that resistance was useless and ordered Fernan to die. Fernan collapsed, wounded. For a moment, everything looked finished. Then a new voice echoed through the cavern. Someone had arrived. The newcomer observed the battlefield calmly and remarked that coming here had been the right call. The battle was about to change again. Deep underground, Fernan Pellenberg was bleeding badly. Blood flowed from his chest as he knelt on the cavern floor, fighting to stay conscious. His breathing came in ragged bursts. Despite the wound, his eyes stayed locked on the enemy. A shadowy ally spoke urgently beside him, thanking him for holding the demon back. The ally explained that the demons had sent another powerful opponent. The previous captured demon had killed itself before revealing any information. This time they intended to interrogate the enemy instead. The ally warned Fernan not to underestimate what was standing in front of them. The demon stepped forward. Its name was Andromalius. The 72nd demon recognized Fernan on sight. It mocked him with a cruel smile. Fernan asked how the demon knew his identity, and Dromalius laughed. Fernan and his allies had interfered with its operations repeatedly. Fernan had exposed demons hidden inside the merchant guild. The demon had spent enormous amounts of money removing Fernan's planted infiltrators. Because of all that, the demon found Fernan extremely annoying. Then came the offer. If Fernan revealed who orchestrated the infiltration, the demon would kill him quickly and painlessly. Fernan refused. Andromalius's expression went dark. Now it intended to kill him slowly. The battle erupted again. Violent red energy slashes tore across the cavern. Fernan moved with impossible agility, dodging attacks and countering with his glowing sword. An ally watching the fight was stunned by what they saw. Fernan's movements required enormous amounts of mana. It almost looked like he possessed an unlimited supply. Even the observer who'd seen Fernan fight demons before hadn't realized how powerful he truly was. The demon noticed too. Andromalius admitted that Fernan was stronger than Ain't Armian. Then the demon's tone changed completely. Until now, it had been treating the fight like entertainment. That game was over. Andromalius began mocking Fernan again. No matter how talented he was, Fernan was still a student. A mere child couldn't defeat a true demon. Fernan smiled calmly. The demon didn't understand the situation at all. It had no idea what was underneath its feet. A hidden magic circle activated on the ground. The demon realized the trap too late. Explosive magical energy erupted from the circle beneath it. Andromalius launched a furious counterattack, sending a red slash toward Fernan. But another surprise hit the demon harder than any blade. Fernan cast flame magic. Andromalius was stunned. Fernan had always been identified as an earth element mage. Yet here he was, unleashing powerful fire magic without any artifact to channel it. Fernan revealed the truth. His highest elemental affinity had always been flame. The demon never knew, nobody did. The trap worked. The magic circle immobilized Andromalius completely. Its limbs were bound by powerful magical restraints. The demon struggled violently, screaming threats and curses. Fernan stood over it, calm as a man who'd already won. He told the demon to stay still. The battle was over. Now it was time to talk. Fernan began the interrogation. He demanded to know who the demon was working for. Andromalius refused immediately, not a word. Fernan sighed and produced a small bottle filled with blue liquid. Without hesitation, he poured it over the demon's body. Andromalius screamed. Blood spilled from its mouth as the pain consumed every nerve. Fernan explained what the liquid was. Holy water. When it entered a demon's body, it burned the internal organs slowly. The pain only intensified with time. Fernan observed the reaction with cold patience. Perhaps demons were more resistant than expected, but the holy water would do its work. Even under torture, the demon refused to cooperate. Instead, it threatened Fernan. If pushed further, it would self-destruct by crushing its own mana heart, killing everyone nearby. Fernan countered instantly. He placed pressure on the demon's mana heart himself. If compressed correctly, the demon couldn't trigger self-destruction. Fernan smiled, and it wasn't the smile of a merchant anymore. The demon had earlier promised to play with Fernan and his family before killing them. Now Fernan returned the promise. He wouldn't allow the demon to die easily. Despite its defeat, Andromalius started laughing. The sound was chilling. It warned Fernan that this battle meant nothing. Someone powerful had already decided his fate. Soon, Fernan would lose everything he possessed. His money, his honor, his power. Even his family and his life. Everything would disappear. That was the future waiting for him. Fernan didn't respond with words. He raised his glowing sword. With a single devastating strike, he slashed the demon's body open. Blood erupted. But Fernan didn't stop there. He unleashed a brutal series of attacks. Flames burned through the demon's body. Explosive magic detonated around it, and his sword stabbed and tore through its flesh over and over. The assault was relentless, merciless. Anyone watching would have thought Fernan had lost his mind entirely. One observer felt genuinely uneasy. Fernan's expression was cold and empty as he destroyed the demon piece by piece. Even though Andromalius deserved death, the sheer brutality shocked them. This wasn't combat. This was something personal. Gardner, the blue flame spirit, reacted differently. Rather than being disturbed, he praised Fernan's ability. According to Gardner, Fernan's strength came from several factors. First, his enormous mana reserves. Second, his ability to freely control two different elemental powers. Third, his talent for using the surrounding environment as a weapon. But what impressed Gardner most was the ruthless determination. To the spirit, the way Fernan dismantled the demon was almost artistic. Not everyone agreed. The observer quietly admitted the fight felt excessively cruel. Gardner dismissed the criticism without a second thought. He declared Fernan their most dependable ally. From that moment forward, Gardner proudly considered Fernan Pellenberg his favorite. Our guy went from rich bastard to favorite person in the span of one extremely violent demon dismemberment. That's one way to earn a 1,000-year-old spirit's respect. Once the battle finally ended, the cavern went quiet. An ally applied first aid magic to Fernan's injured hand. The wound was serious. The ally suggested sending a physician from the guild. Fernan initially refused. The academy's nursing office would be fine. The ally objected. This wound wasn't ordinary. If someone discovered Fernan had fought a demon, it could cause unnecessary trouble. Fernan accepted the logic and agreed to the help. The ally told him not to feel indebted. They were allies now, after all. After resting, Fernan and Ain't continued exploring the cavern. Ain't asked whether the place was supposed to be empty. Fernan explained the truth behind it all. The founding emperor expected demons to return someday. Because of that, he hid powerful relics across the world. This underground cavern was one of those hidden locations. The relics only responded to Armen blood, the founding emperor's lineage. That explains something from earlier. The demon couldn't enter the deeper areas. The relics themselves had prevented it. They descended further. Ain't hesitated at the entrance to a lower chamber. He asked if it was really acceptable for him to enter. Fernan nodded. After all, Ain't saved his life. He deserved to see what lay inside. As they went deeper, Ain't reflected on Fernan's magic. If Fernan had specialized in flame instead of earth, he might have become an even stronger combat mage. Fernan explained his reasoning without regret. He chose earth magic for practical reasons. As a merchant, discovering mineral veins was more valuable than pure combat strength. Power alone didn't make a merchant successful. Even in the middle of a cavern stained with demon blood, Fernan's brain defaulted to business economics. Their conversation shifted to the demon they'd killed. Ain't asked if he could take the corpse. Fernan didn't mind. He'd already given the previous demon's body to the Dragon God Order, and they'd been thrilled. Demon corpses were invaluable research materials. Studying them could lead to artifacts designed specifically to counter demons. Ain't commented that the Order members must be a little unhinged. Apparently they'd quartered the demon's body for research. Enthusiasm and insanity, sometimes the line barely existed. They reached a deeper chamber. At the center lay a relic connected to the founding emperor. Fernan recognized it immediately. The decoration attached to Aint's sword was related to this relic. Nearby, a massive drawing was carved into the cavern wall. It depicted two demons glaring at each other. Fernan studied the mural carefully and identified both figures. One was Andromalius, the 72nd demon. The other was Dantalion, the 71st demon. Ain't asked why the demons appeared hostile toward each other. Fernan explained simply. Just like human society, demons had factions. 1,000 years ago, the founding emperor exploited those rivalries to turn the tide of war. Even among monsters, politics never stopped. The relic on Aint's sword suddenly activated. Magical energy spread through the weapon. Ain't realized he'd grown stronger. The relic had reacted to his bloodline. Fernan observed the result quietly. The founding emperor's inheritance was working exactly as intended. Ain't then felt uneasy. Fernan had saved his life, yet Ain't seemed to be the only one benefiting from the expedition. He offered to give something in return. Fernan refused. He said he'd helped as a friend and expected nothing. Ain't insisted. A knight should repay his debts. Eventually Fernan gave in. There was something he wanted. He pointed at the cavern walls. Dozens of magic lanterns were installed throughout the chamber. Fernan had already counted them, nearly 100. For a merchant, this was practically a treasure trove. Magic lanterns were luxury items. Ain't was surprised. He'd expected Fernan to request something far more valuable. Fernan accepted the lanterns happily. Ain't promised to earn money through mercenary work during the upcoming vacation to repay him further. Fernan thought to himself, despite everything that happened, despite demons and prophecies and near-death experiences, Ain't was still surprisingly naive. The kid offered to do mercenary work to pay back the man who could buy the entire mercenary guild. Endearing and completely impractical. The two left the cavern together. The academy had entered its vacation period, 70 days of freedom. Many students planned to gain real-world experience. Mercenary work was one option unlike academy lessons. It exposed students to genuine danger. Somewhere darker, the demons were reassessing everything. Someone recounted recent events. A figure named Commentas had been killed during a confrontation. Just as Commentas was about to kill Armian, Fernan Pellenberg appeared and stopped him. The demons cursed his name. Once again, Fernan interfered and ruined their plans. Every time the demon's schemes began unfolding, Fernan showed up. And every time, he became a bigger obstacle. One observer reflected carefully. Even for Ain't Armian, who'd been improving rapidly, Commentas would have been a difficult opponent. Yet Fernan killed Commentas, and he did it far more easily than anyone expected. The observer initially believed it was luck. But reviewing everything, the yacht club, the transportation mission, and now Commentas' luck, couldn't explain any of it. The observer admitted the truth. They had underestimated Fernan Pellenberg. Their plan had to change. From now on, Fernan Pellenberg must be treated as someone equal to Ain't Armian. Both had become serious threats. The order was absolute. Everyone must keep close watch on Fernan and his family. If he ever becomes vulnerable, eliminate him. One person raised a concern attempting to kill him might expose their organization. The leader dismissed it. Their existence was already exposed. Both Ain't Armian and Fernan Pellenberg knew demons had infiltrated the academy. The academy's silence proved the institution knew as well. The conflict between humans and demons had already begun. Hiding was no longer an option. The demons' highest priority crystallized into a single sentence. Kill Ain't Armian and Fernan Pellenberg before they become even greater threats. The demons wanted both of them dead. But Fernan Pellenberg was already 3 steps ahead because he always was. Elsewhere, preparations were underway for Aint's activities during the academy's long vacation. The decision had already been made. Ain't would gain real-world experience through mercenary work. Dangerous, unpredictable, and exactly the kind of environment where a first-year student could get himself killed if nobody was watching. So Fernan made sure someone would be. A mercenary named Barus Dener was assigned to act as Aintz's hidden bodyguard. The kid was currently ranked 4th in the first-year knight class. Despite his young age, he was already a disciple of the legendary mercenary king and had direct connections to the mercenary guild. On paper, Barus was impressive, but the real reason Fernan chose him ran deeper than credentials. According to the prophecy, Barus and Ain't would eventually become close allies. Normally, that friendship happened much later in the timeline, but circumstances had already begun changing the future. Fernan's interventions had shifted events forward, backward, sideways. The prophecy was becoming less of a roadmap and more of a rough sketch. So, the decision was made to bring them together earlier, accelerate a friendship that was supposed to happen naturally, force the timeline. Barus received his instructions. Stay near Ain't during his mercenary training. However, and this was critical, Ain't must never realize that Barus was protecting him. The job description was beautifully simple. Make sure Ain't does not die. That's it. Keep the founding emperor's descendant breathing through whatever idiotic situation he stumbled into next. When Barus heard the payment being offered, his reaction was immediate. Shock. The amount was enormous. The wealth of the Pellenberg family operated on a scale that most people couldn't even conceptualize. Barus enthusiastically accepted the mission and promised not to disappoint. For that kind of money, he would have followed Ain't into a volcano. Meanwhile, the academy finished its semester. After final examinations wrapped up, the entire campus shifted into vacation mode. The atmosphere became light and relaxed. Students and instructors prepared to return home for the break. Months of intense training, demonic underground battles, and political scheming all temporarily paused so that teenagers could go home and sleep in their own beds. The normalcy almost felt absurd after everything that had happened. One student packed a suitcase and prepared to leave. She planned to return home during the vacation. Someone asked when she intended to come back. She answered that she'd return about 2 weeks before the new semester began so she could prepare properly. A perfectly reasonable answer, perfectly innocent. Fernan heard that timeline and went cold inside. According to the prophecy, the demon Andromalius would be summoned shortly before the semester began. That meant her return date placed her directly in the middle of the catastrophe. 2 weeks before classes resumed, right when the sky was supposed to turn red and the academy was supposed to become hell, she'd be walking straight into it. Before she left, Fernan gave her a small object. It looked like an earring, delicate, unremarkable, the kind of thing you'd barely notice. But it wasn't jewelry, it was a direct communication device. The technology allowed 2 people to talk to each other within a range of about 3 kilometers. She immediately pointed out the obvious flaw. Their families lived dozens of kilometers apart. The device would be completely useless across that distance. Fernan already knew. The device wasn't meant for communication during the vacation. It was meant for what might happen inside the academy later. 3 kilometers, roughly the distance between the dormitory and the farthest edge of campus. When things went wrong, when the summoning began and chaos erupted, they'd need to coordinate instantly. No messengers, no delays, direct connection. She accepted the device anyway. Maybe she understood. Maybe she didn't want to think too hard about why a merchant student was handing out communication equipment disguised as earrings before vacation. Either way, she took it and left. Soon afterward, Fernan departed as well. He briefly returned home. His father had been looking forward to this. His son achieved first place in his class. The Duke wanted to congratulate him, spend time talking, maybe enjoy a rare moment of family pride. Instead, Fernan left almost immediately. He claimed he had urgent work to handle, didn't elaborate, didn't stay. The servants discussed the situation after he was gone. Apparently, Fernan had been working on a mysterious project for months, something extremely complicated. He insisted it had to be completed before the vacation ended. One servant wondered where he planned to sell whatever he was building. Another servant shook his head. Fernan didn't intend to sell it at all. The true purpose of the project remained unknown to everyone except Fernan himself. The heir of the Pellenberg family, the richest household in the empire, was building something that wasn't for sale. That alone should have terrified anyone paying attention. At the same time, someone questioned Fernan about another decision. Why had he hired Barus Diener to protect Ain't? Fernan explained his reasoning calmly. He'd originally wanted to watch over Ain't personally, but the list of responsibilities on his plate had grown beyond what any single person could manage, even a person who knew the future. Demons to track, allies to coordinate, a mysterious weapon to build, a prophecy that was slowly unraveling, an academy to protect, a family reputation to defend. And somewhere in all of that, he was still a second-year student who technically had homework. Hiring someone from the Mercenary Guild was simply more efficient. There were many skilled fighters in the Scarlet Turtle Guild, but Barus was the most trustworthy choice. Another person pointed out the obvious contradiction. Fernan barely knew Barus. How could he trust someone he'd barely met? Fernan answered without hesitation. He knew one thing for certain. Ain't Armian was not someone who could easily be killed. The kid had survived sea serpents, demon ambushes, poisoned wounds, and being thrown overboard into a mass of sea worms. Ain't Armian was, against all logic, annoyingly difficult to kill. Still, the future was uncertain. That uncertainty was exactly why he hired a bodyguard. Insurance against the unknown. A merchant's instinct applied to warfare. Fernan reflected silently on the bigger picture. The future described in the prophecy was slowly changing. Every intervention he'd made saving Bella, capturing demons, protecting the World Tree Branch, forming the alliance with each one had altered the timeline. Events that were supposed to happen later had already occurred. Events that were supposed to happen at all had been prevented. Because of that, the future could no longer be predicted with perfect certainty. The prophecy was still useful, but its accuracy was degrading with every action Fernan took. He was rewriting the script while standing on the stage. Then Fernan thought about something that kept him awake at night. Ain't recently almost died fighting a powerful demon. That event was never mentioned in the prophecy. It wasn't supposed to happen. Originally, the demons had tried to destroy Fernan, financially attack his business, ruin his reputation, undermine the Pellenberg household through economic warfare. Now they were trying to kill him outright. The strategy had escalated. If the demons were changing their approach, the threats appearing in the future might be stronger than the prophecy predicted. Enemies he wasn't prepared for. Attacks he couldn't foresee. The safety net of knowing what came next was fraying at the edges. And another critical event was approaching. The day when Andromalius would be summoned was getting closer. The 72nd demon, the creature that would turn the academy into a living nightmare if it descended successfully. The blood-red sky, the students losing their minds, the monsters in the hallways, everything Fernan had seen in his visions. Because of this, Fernan reached a conclusion. He had to prepare much more carefully for what lay ahead. More allies, more weapons, more contingencies. Every variable accounted for, every escape route mapped, every possible failure anticipated and countered before it could happen. The demons were coming whether he was ready or not. The prophecy guaranteed at least that much. He already had a plan. As a merchant, he couldn't rely solely on physical strength. Ain't was the sword the founding emperor's bloodline, the radiant techniques, the raw combat power that could cut through demonic energy like sunlight through shadow. Luina was the shield, the most talented fighter in her class, reliable and steadfast. Jace was the holy fire, the dragon god order's representative with purification magic that burned evil from the inside out. Varian was the wild card, a knight consumed by revenge, unpredictable but driven. Fernan was none of those things. He wasn't the strongest, he wasn't the fastest. He wasn't blessed by an ancient bloodline or chosen by a divine order. He was a merchant, and merchants fought differently. Instead of relying on a sword, he would create the strongest weapon that only a merchant could possess. Something that didn't require superhuman strength or divine favor. Something built from gold, intelligence, preparation, and the kind of ruthless pragmatism that turned holy water into an interrogation tool and demon corpses into research materials. Something that would make the difference when blades and magic weren't enough. That weapon was the mysterious project he'd been secretly developing for months. The thing his servants couldn't understand. The creation his father didn't know about. The final card in a hand that Fernan Pellenberg had been building since the day he first read the prophecy and realized the world was running out of time. The academy sat empty. The hallways were quiet. 70 days of vacation stretched ahead like a held breath before a storm. Students, scattered across the empire, some going home, some training, some blissfully unaware that demons had already marked them for death, and, somewhere in a workshop alone with blueprints and materials and the weight of a future only he could see, Fernan Pellenberg kept working. The merchant who knew the apocalypse was coming, building the one weapon money could buy that might actually stop it. If you enjoyed the story so far, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Yume Recap, and stay tuned for the next video.